Yes. Hey, everybody, we're going to get started. This is extremely exciting for Polk County, Polk Vision's initiative, the Food Security Council of Polk County. A little over a year ago, Polk Vision approached myself. I'm Rod Crowley from United Way of Central Florida, and Jenna Kazmarski. She was the school district nutrition counselor or director at the time, and had an idea of a food security council to accomplish some goals around this area in Polk County. So you'll see throughout the day how much has been achieved and how far we still have to go. But we're very excited for all of you to be here today. This is fabulous to have everybody here in person and have the interactive pieces that we have planned for today. So thank you all. Thank you to our sponsors. They're on the slide there, and we'll be mentioning them throughout the day as well. And I want to first kick it over to Bobby Williams, who is going to do the invocation and lead us all in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to be a blessing to the folks of Polk County, Lord. We just ask you to give us ears to hear, hearts to be open, eyes to see what you're doing in this county, Lord, as we're touching people and changing lives through food insecurity, Lord. It is a commandment of yours, Lord. So we thank you as you're growing this group of people and volunteers and communities and ministries and everything together, Lord, just to be a blessing to the people of Polk County, Lord, that when they see us, they see you, they see the love of a Father. Lord, we honor you and praise you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Turn to the flag. Everybody stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you. And Jenna wants to share just some thoughts from Kim Long, who couldn't be here today, but she wanted to send her best wishes. She really was the brainchild and innovator and the visionary for this concept, and Polk Vision has taken it and made it one of their major initiatives in the county. So she wanted to share some thoughts on that.
Thanks, Rod. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time. I know how busy everyone is, and it's wonderful to see this many people in the room together, and shows the excitement that we all share for coming together around this so important issue of hunger, specifically in Polk County. So it was a little over a year ago. The pandemic had actually, probably it was like 2 years ago now, like, you know how that time warp has been. So, you know, the pandemic had just rocked everything, and Polk Vision is a very collaborative and engaged and in-person organization. We get together, we collaborate, and we work together, and the pandemic made all of that very challenging. And all of our education-based programs really had to take a pause because they were overwhelmed, of course, by everything that was happening in the schools. And Kim and I were having a conversation, and there was this one simple thing that we were talking about. I needed partners in the community because we had gone to, mobile feeding. Schools were closed. We were still feeding kids, and I was the school nutrition director at the time, and we needed partners in the community. And I quickly realized that I had been in Polk County for 16 years working in school nutrition, and yet I didn't know who to call when I needed people that would be willing to host, sites for me to feed these kids. And I thought, there's something wrong here. Like I've been collaborating, but I haven't been collaborating maybe with all of the right people. And I was very connected to my role in hunger and feeding children at schools, but it's so much bigger than that. And there's so much opportunity to work together with others to make bigger impacts. And who did I call? Kim Long, because she probably knows everyone in this room and she knows so many people. And I said, Kim, these are the areas I'm needing sites for. Can you help me? And of course she did. And we got to talking about that. And then I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to have a site at XYZ. And she said, wait a minute. No, I think someone else is doing a mobile food pantry that same week. Like that doesn't make sense. And the light bulb went off for us, and she's like, there's got to be a better way for us to reach our community and to work together. And the fact that you were going to have a mobile food drop at the same location as someone else in the same week, how can that happen, right? Because we're not talking. And that is where this vision sort of started. And we said, you know what? We're not working on our normal Polk Vision education meetings. And I said, I have some time that I can devote. What should we do? And the Polk Food Security Council was born from there. And Rod Crowley came alongside as our co-chair. So fortunate for him. It's been just really a great year and a half. We've come so far. We said in the beginning, hey, wouldn't it be awesome if we did a food summit, a hunger summit? We've been to some others in other counties, we need to do that. But, we pulled that off in just a year. And so we're just so pleased to see all of you here. And I really want to thank you. I'm trying to channel Kim because of course she wanted to do these opening remarks. And I know she's sad that she can't be here. So thank you again. We've got a nice fully packed day for you. What I just will leave you with is that this day is about collaboration and planting a seed so that you can meet some new people, hopefully today, maybe learn some things about programs that are happening that you maybe were not aware of, and start to think, hey, how can I expand my reach by working with someone else? We're better together and we can achieve so much more if we work together on this issue. There's amazing things happening in Polk County, but there's so much more that we could be doing. And so today is not going to be a deep dive into anything. It's meant to plant a seed and get the ball rolling on a collaborative effort so that we can start really tackling hunger and stop just providing food for those who need it and really start making an impact on the root causes of hunger in Polk County. So thank you for being here. I'll turn it back over to Rod.
Thank you, Jenna. And yeah, thank you. And that example she was given earlier, that was actually one of our United Way of Central Florida sites. And we were going to literally be doing a food drop 2 hours apart in the same parking lot. So that's the kind of collaboration that we realized needed to exist to hopefully better use those resources. I asked Christy Sitek from Frostproof Care Center to just share a very powerful impact story. I know there's tens of thousands of these in our county, but I just wanted to share this one. She shared it at a meeting last week. So I thought it'd be something good to hear just about the reality and need of food security.
Good morning. So many times we just don't quite fully understand what the need is in our community because we can put a blinder on at times and say, oh, we're feeding people, we're good. But in reality, we have to get to know people. We need to understand their journeys individually in order to really meet their needs with food insecurity and with other issues that they may be struggling with. And one of the situations that we kind of came into really just a month ago spoke to my heart greatly. And we certainly want to meet needs as we can. Crisis intervention is first and foremost of what we do at the Frostproof Care Center to be able to get people from that unstable moment into stability. And of course, food is one of our greatest resources that we have to meet those needs for these families that come to us. But Bridget was 64 years old. And Bridget was living and is living on fixed income of $1,600 a month. And as you can imagine, that doesn't go very far. Her medications alone are $700 a month. So she was beginning to have to get to a place where she was making a choice between, do I pay my rent? Do I eat? How do I pay my electric bill? What do I do? And she had to take in her daughter who's going through some medical emergencies right now herself that didn't bring any extra income to the home, but now she has to help provide for her as well, who is 34 years old. So sometimes even the crisis family has an additional crisis that occurs from time to time, right? And most of us deal with situational things with our clients on a regular basis. But with Bridget, she didn't know what to do. She didn't know where to go. And she made a contact phone call of which we then received a phone call from another organization saying she's in your area. Can you help her? And of course, the immediate answer is absolutely. Went to Bridget's house, was able to find out she had no food in her refrigerator, no food in a pantry or at all, that she had no food in her home. And come to find out, she actually had 2 pieces of bread the night before. Her daughter got 1 piece, she got another piece. Her daughter was able to put the last little bit of butter they had in their home on her piece. And she decided that she would put in some salt and pepper, ironically, onto her piece of bread just for extra something, right? So she was suffering. She didn't know where to go. Again, choices, sometimes even between medications and eating. which they needed both, right? Not just one or the other. And so we were able to go in, and through that home visit, I was able to carry her enough food to last at least 1 month, rationed right. And we explained to her how that needed to happen, and was able to put her on other ministries that we have. We have a senior ministry that we actually deliver food out once a month. And unfortunately, we are part of the George Shanks initiative of food give outs here in our county. However, Bridget has no transportation. She has no way to come to our give outs. And so that's another issue in itself. However, we have made an arrangement with her that we would set a food box aside for her and deliver it to her home so that she does have that extra food coming in that she needs. What is sad is she can't even apply for food stamps because she's just over the threshold with her income, just over. I mean, just over, so what do people do in that situation, right? And so next on the agenda is for us to continually help her and try to find low income housing, et cetera, for her. But the most important thing is that we needed to feed her. We needed to feed her daughter, because that was going to open another can of worms, right? If there's no food in the home. So I'm so grateful through our care center that we were able to meet that need. We know, again, she had a good 1 month of food given to her, and we will continue to meet that need for her and her family until we can stabilize them moving forward. But that's what the partnership is all about, coming together and finding ways that we can collaborate in order to meet needs for people that maybe we didn't know was out there. This is real, and this is a crisis that we're facing. There are many, many families, for whatever reason, are in this situation. So our eyes need to be open. We need to be looking. We need to be asking questions. We need to be able to come to a place where we say, how can we better help? And I think today is going to help us discover that.
Thank you. Thank you, Christy. So I want to just do a little bit of a preview of the day. We have some great things planned today. We're going to present some of the high-level findings from the food security assessment that the Health Council of West Central Florida did for us. On the back table, I know some of you have grabbed some of these already. This is the full assessment. It's on the back table there. In your blue bag, in your packet there that you have a 3-page summary of the assessment and some food safety items like a freezable ice pack and a freezable ice sheet and a thermometer and some safety information that's going to be talked about and used throughout the day today. And we cannot thank the Health Council of West Central Florida enough for their involvement in doing the study, in aligning us with the mapping expert, Anthony Oliviero, who is going to be on here talking to you all in just a few minutes, and the GIS, Geographic Information Systems map that he created for food security for Polk County, which is a pretty incredible tool. Polk County Emergency Management team is hosting that on their platform for us as well. But like I said, the Health Council has done an amazing job with everything. All of this has happened, including the tech for the summit and a lot of the materials for the summit, and no cost to Polk County at all. So we can't thank them enough. So thank you to all our sponsors, but they have gone above and beyond for everything. Another thing that's in the packets is a survey for the end of the day. If you'll fill out just your thoughts, it's very simple, positives and negatives that you have for us, either suggestions in that. And then this event is kind of our kickoff for the official council going forward. So many of you have been at some of the meetings already and participated, been on and off the meetings. We just want to get kind of a list of those who really want to participate in the council going forward as members. There's no cost to participate or become involved in it, but if you'll fill out the bottom of that survey piece, if you would like to join or be notified about future Food Security Council events, that's kind of our way to figure out who wants to be engaged going forward to join us in our we usually have a monthly meeting the last Thursday of each month, so a monthly virtual meeting that is. So I'll kick off a little bit of the purpose of the council. The official original vision of the council was a hunger-free Polk County. And the mission worked to end hunger in Polk County by addressing equitable access to food, educating, empowering community members to make healthy food choices, and aligning private and charitable food programs with government food programs. The Polk County Food Security Council is a collaborative group of cross-sector representatives dedicated to ensuring that everyone in our community has equitable access to sufficient quantities of consistently available, healthy, nutritious food. We set up some pretty lofty goals in early 2001. We kind of set those as maybe a 2-year goal. So we figured by the end of 2022, we could be hopefully working on a few of these. As I go kind of through and read them, I think that we've met almost all of these to a pretty good standard. And the last one, the Food Security Council Awards, is maybe something we shoot for next year, or some kind of recognition in this space, because there's some amazing work going on. But first of all was to build collaboration and alignment between programs. We definitely have been doing that, or attempting to do that from day one. Support communication within the community. Conduct the Polk County Food Security Study and Resource Mapping, which you're going to hear all about that today and see the results of that. To host the Security Summit. This was really a dream, and it's just awesome to see it come to fruition and see all of you here today. Impact policy and funding. There has been some direct and indirect impact on that as well. We will continue to focus on current and critical issues. And then, like I said, some type of recognition possibly in the future. The purpose of the food security study, I want to talk a little bit about that, was to identify the different systems and factors that influence food access in Polk County, to gain an understanding of Polk County residents' experience, barriers, and challenges to accessing food when they need it, and to develop the Geographic Information System, GIS map, for partners and stakeholders to identify resources and gaps in service and best prioritize actions in regarding food security in Polk County. We have a laptop on every table, so when we do get to the demonstration of the map, one person at each table will help fire those up. They'll be on the map if you want to play around with it a little bit while Anthony's doing his demonstration as well. And then after his, he's got a pre-recorded demonstration, and then he'll be live for Q&A. We wanted to make sure there weren't any issues with technical glitches, so we'll have him live for Q&A, but his presentation was pre-recorded. So we're really looking forward to that piece. The methodology of the study. The Health Council of West Central Florida did an online survey. This was back in November, December 2021. So they did an online survey of as many feeding organizations as we could reach. We got all the contact lists we could find and tried to reach out and find as many as we could to add them to the map. The Polk County Public Schools, because there's a lot of different variations of the school feeding programs, which you'll hear about today in a little while as well. They did 4 focus groups, 3 different ones of community members and people maybe that are either volunteers or people in need of food and things like that, to just kind of get that qualitative information from the community. And then one focus group of agencies and operators that are working in the space and to gather their input of what they're seeing in the community, as well as 6 key informant interviews. So we chose 6 people that were very key to the food space, whether impacting policy and decisions, or with the major suppliers in the area as well. And they did 6 interviews of them. So Jenna Kaczmarski is going to come up and talk about the first 2 of the pillars of food security, and then I'll talk about the next 2, and then we'll get into the study or the map.
So when we examine food security, it's typically pretty well understood that you can look at these 4 pillars of food insecurity, and those are availability, access, utilization, and stability. Before I get into the 4 pillars, I do want to plant another seed. A lot of the work that I've been doing over the last 8 months in this space has opened my eyes to some other ways of looking at some of this. And so if you've never heard of the term food sovereignty, I just wanted you to kind of maybe make a note of that and look into what that looks like, because it's a whole broader range of looking at food security than I was, looking at it, and think it's an important way for people to start looking at it as well. So I just want to throw that out there before I get started. I went too far. So when we start looking at the 4 pillars, we start with availability. And this is where we start because we're asking the question, is there a reliable and consistent source of quality food? We can't really start to look at all of the other impacts of food insecurity until we decide, well, is there food available? And I think in my dealings with people in the United States, we tend to take availability a little bit for granted and we discount it. And we just say, well, yes, we are the land of abundance. We have more than enough food for everybody. So there's other reasons why food security is happening. So I would challenge you to dig a little deeper when you think about the pillar of availability. And I've been doing that a little bit, looking into our way that we produce food in this country, for example, and some of those impacts. And so, the answer is yes, there is enough food and there's enough nutritious food. But when you start to dig a little deeper, you can realize that these other 4 pillars start to really bleed into availability. And, can we get the food where it needs to be? That's a big one in Polk County. We have a very complex and centralized supply chain. And so that's what I was talking about earlier, where I've really been digging into where we produce our food and the lengths that we go to get that food to the people that need it. We're growing food in California and trucking it all the way to Florida, and in many cases, we might be able to grow that same food here. So we have developed a very efficient and centralized supply chain, but I think the pandemic showed us, if nothing else, that there are some holes in that complex supply chain. And we started to see things that weren't available that we took for granted at the grocery store, let alone those who had the effects of the pandemic that caused them to no longer have the resources they needed for the food. But those of us that had the resources realized the food we're used to seeing on the shelf maybe wasn't available. And even still today, we're seeing that. And there's also a lot of food waste considerations with a complicated supply chain like that. So even though the food's available, a lot of it goes to waste because we can't get it where it needed to go, or we didn't have the right kinds of foods that people needed and things like that. So there's more to availability than just what's on the surface. So I'd encourage you to think a little bit deeper on that one as well. And specifically in Polk, in the study, we definitely identified some of the things we already know, which were, it depends on where you live. Thank you so much for your story this morning, Christy, and she mentioned transportation. And so if you're living in a rural part of Polk County, you might have to go 20 miles or more to get to a grocery store or a food drop location, and that's not feasible for many people. And then we also identified some storage capacity limitations. So there are things that limit us in terms of the people that are trying to provide food, because maybe they got offered a truckload of something. I know we saw this at the school district. We had farmers willing to give us truckloads of amazing produce, but we didn't have the capacity to get it off the truck and into the people's hands that needed it. So sometimes it's a logistical issue, literally. And that's, sometimes very sad. So that's something we'll talk about later as a need in Polk County for some increased storage capacity in the county. And then when we did the focus groups, and things that came to light were that the focus group participants identified that they value our feeding organizations, and they definitely see them and understand that they are a safety net, not meant to be their long-term source of food. So they understood that, and they value the feeding organizations that we have here in Polk County. And we did have some really shining examples of collaboration and sharing. So if one organization serves seniors and they received some food from one of their suppliers that wasn't applicable to their market, then they could share it with another organization that could put that to use. And so we saw some of that, and those are the kinds of things that we want to amplify through this network, so that you have that list of contacts, and when you see the map, you know where to reach out when you either need something or you have something to share. And the second pillar that I will talk about is access. And this one we could go on forever, so I'll do a brief overview of access, but there's so much to look at when we talk about the question of, do people have sufficient resources to either produce their own food or purchase food? One thing that I think is coming in our future is a return to some of our roots of producing our own food. I know that's on my bucket list. I have a little more time in my schedule now with the work that I'm doing, and it's on my bucket list to have, a garden at my house. And I think a lot more people are considering that type of method of getting their food, growing it themselves, or a community garden that they can participate in, or maybe a slightly larger farm that is a community supported agriculture model where you can be connected with those people that are growing your food. So I think there's some really, really exciting opportunities there. And I think that could flourish in Polk County. And then, as we have been talking about, many of our neighbors don't have the resources to purchase the food that they need or get to the food that they need. And so those living in rural areas, they have to travel significant distances in this county in some cases to reach either retail food stores or the feeding locations, as we mentioned. So there's certain parts of the county that just don't have the availability and they really have to travel. So now you have the added cost for the gas. If they even have a vehicle to get there, are they taking public transportation? That comes with a whole host of challenges if that's their method to get to the grocery store or to a feeding location. And so all of that is very well laid out in the study report. And then we know that we have our safety net services that are providing and filling the gaps for those that need it. And so we have SNAP, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We have schools providing critical access, and we'll talk about how that has expanded beyond breakfast and lunch. And now there's just so much being done through the school system to help our students and their families. And then as well, WIC. And so if you're interested in any of those services and the opportunities and the challenges that exist, all of that is in that full report, and those were examined in great detail. So I'm going to turn it back over to Rod for the remaining two pillars.
Thank you. And I also wanted to thank our resource table partners that are here today too. No Kid Hungry, Central Florida Healthcare, the Health Council West Central Florida, and then our relationships. A really neat little technical tool that helps with stability is the Food Keeper app. I think Feeding America, I'm not sure if they developed that, and Feeding Tampa Bay, I know promotes it, but that Food Keeper app is a really neat one. If you want to make a note to download that from the App Store, it's just a green square and has FK in the middle, is Food Keeper, but it's a really neat little app to look up information pretty much on anything, and it talks about, or it gives data on the like dates past a Best By date that things can be still good, because there's a lot of food waste created by those printed dates on things all across the country. They still say that the amount of wasted food in the United States is in the mid 30%. It was 40% before the pandemic. I've seen some estimations that actually went down a little bit because there wasn't the food on the shelves that was being wasted, and people were in need of food so much that maybe the food waste went down a little bit, but it's still in that high 30% area. And then I'm going to turn it back to Jenna to get into our mapping effort. So thank you. Or do you want me to go ahead and just give? Okay, we'll do. So we have Anthony Olivieri, and he's live listening in, and we have his presentation. And while he's starting that, Polk Vision staff is going to be available to come around and get the map up on those computers on each table. So you can kind of be doing that while we get him started and get into that piece. So he's going to do a demonstration of what the map is. All of you will receive the link to the map after this, to where you can actually go in there and tinker around and explore that map. It's a phenomenal tool. We're very fortunate to have this. And now we can take your feedback and develop that map to hopefully keep improving on it. So we're really excited to present this to you all. And we'll kick it off with his presentation. And then he's going to be available live for Q&A afterwards.
And good day, everyone. My name is Anthony Olivieri. I'm based here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I specialize in geographic information systems, otherwise known as GIS, particularly in food systems and community health. Today, I'm going to go over a mapping tool that I developed in partnership with Polk Vision. It's a mapping tool that allows us to explore food security opportunities in Polk County. So before we go into why, in the actual tool, let me go into why we should use maps in general particularly for something as complex as food security. The first thing is perspective. As you see, with the proverbial elephant off to the side of the screen, we could tell it's elephant from perspective of being a few feet away, but often problems such as food security are very complex. There's poverty involved, there's food access, food quality, there's knowledge about food. There are many, many pieces to the elephant of the problem of food security. And maps allow us to get the perspective of all the pieces, to see it all together at once. We get to see these in many scales, everything from the small plot of the community garden, to the school, to the city, to the neighborhood, to the county. Or we can look at various scales and we can zoom in and out at these scales. Also, what's important is the collaboration piece. Maps allow us to collaborate across partners. Food security and the health issues associated with it require cross collaboration from the city to institutions, to nonprofits, to faith organizations. It's a multifaceted problem. It is dealing with the one problem of food security. So this tool is one way that we could gain collaboration and common perspective of the problem. The map that we developed has about 20 layers, and these layers break down to about 61 supermarkets, 55 feeding organizations, 155 schools, and these are situated in census tracts, which I'll go into a little bit. The census tracts are neighborhoods, so we get to see the social vulnerability of these neighborhoods and also their health status conditions. So we have these food and socioeconomic layers, which provide the context for the point layers, such as our supermarkets and feeding organizations and schools. So for example, as a context layer, Social Vulnerability Index, or otherwise known as the SVI. The CDC made the SVI as a way of mapping social vulnerability into one scale. That scale is 0 to 1, 1 being the most vulnerable. Off to the far right of this diagram of the SVI are the 15 census measures, the US Census measures at the tract level that the SVI incorporates. So everything from poverty to mobile homes. These 15 measures are aggregated and organized into 4 themes: socioeconomic status, household composition and disability, minority status and language, housing and transportation. And these are then incorporated into an overall score of SVI. So each of these have a score. So socioeconomic status, 0 to 1, minority status, 0 to 1, but there's an overall score as well of 0 to 1 of overall social vulnerability. And this allows us to look at Polk County or any area that we're interested in and understand the social vulnerability of that particular area. It's called a census tract, but otherwise, also it's known as like a neighborhood level. And this allows us to see the context for vulnerability, particularly for food security. This is much easier metric than if we were to map 15 layers. So if we were going to map poverty and seniors and mobile home structures, those who live in mobile home structures, we would get a very messy map. But this allows us to see it all one metric. And we'll see that in a little bit. What's also available in the mapping system are layers or contextual layers at the tract level, the neighborhood level, for 3 major dietary health outcomes: heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. We know that food insecurity directly relates to these health outcomes. So as part of the multifaceted problem of food security is also looking at the health outcomes because of food insecurity and how social vulnerability and diabetes and obesity and heart disease interact allows us to give multiple perspectives and layers to see how health, social vulnerability, and food insecurity interact, and the assets and how those assets are positioned with these conditions. So going back to our site layers, these are the main layers that we have, just to give you a sense of the data behind them. So we have 55 feeding organizations in our map, but it doesn't just mean we just have these little points and just the addresses. Each feeding organization has 34 attributes or points of information behind them. So 55 times 34, that gives you the permutations of how much information we have just with these feeding organizations. So this information for each of these organizations is such as, does it have a kitchen or not? In this case, this particular feeding organization is not listed to have a kitchen, it's a 0. Does it have refrigeration? Is it a freezer, a pallet jack, lift gate, concrete pad? It's warehouse square footage, it's cold storage. And some of this information may not be populated yet. And the map gives us the ability to edit these attributes and add that information. So if this particular feeding organization does indeed have some square footage of warehouse, and it has a warehouse and some square footage, we actually can enter it with another widget. But just to give you an idea that behind every point feature, such as feeding organizations, there are multiple attributes behind it. And this allows us to navigate our data through these attributes. And just want to back up a second, just make a distinction. There is a web base map that it feeds into the web app. So the app is basically the map, but it has widgets. And these widgets, well, I'll explain, allow you to filter, edit, select, export data layers, allows you to basically make a custom map, allows you to navigate the data. So when I'm going to be showing you a little bit, it is a map. It's the appropriate term. It's a app map or a map app. It's a base map with widgets. It's a functional map that you can manipulate and work with the data. Whereas a typical map, you can look and see, but you really cannot touch and you cannot move things around and work with it. So we just give you some ideas of the basic functions of these widgets, or these functions of a web app. So there's a legend view. It allows you to see the legend. And here we don't show the legend, we're showing the layer view, but here we're on the layer view. And on the layer view, we could turn off layers. We could, if it's checked, we could turn it on. If it's unchecked, it's off. We change the transparency of layers. We could zoom in and out. And when we see something, we want more information, we could click on it and we could view its attributes, such as, for example, if we want to see those 34 attributes behind a feed organization. We could also change the base map. So if we could see if it's a street view, like more like a Google Street View or a satellite view, and we can zoom to a particular address if we like to. So the basic map functions allow you to toggle between layer view and legend view, zoom, change the base map, change transparency, and find locations. These are very basic functions, and some of these you find in a typical map application such as Google. But when we go more into the web app or the map app, there are widgets. And again, the widgets allow you to perform data operations, allow you to navigate through that, all the data. And so we have these widgets built into this map app, info summary, filtering, select and export, editing, ability to share the map app, ability to print your own map and change how the map looks in these. And I'm going to give you a little summary of each of these. And then we're going to go through an example that allows us to execute almost all of these functions. So info summary. So info summary is basically a directory. We can have 55 feeder organizations and over 100 schools in our map. And how can it's get very cumbersome to look for a particular item or feature when you look at the map. Info summary allows you to, in your view of the map, see how many of those features are there. So in this view, there are 14 schools. And then when you click on that info summary item, it gives you a breakdown of what schools there are. When you click on it, it pops up on the map. So if we click on the Columbia Academy of Design, it pops up on the map and we can zoom to it or we can get more information about it. This is a way to navigate through your map through a very quick directory rather than scrolling around the map and zooming in and out. This is a quick list. It's a list with a map is a very powerful tool for navigation. The filter feature or filter by feature widget is another powerful tool. And this really lets you to navigate your data by the attributes. So remember, he said that the feed organizations have 34 attributes, such as have a loading dock, cold storage. With the filter feature, we could narrow down our 55 organizations, or our feed organizations, down to a few just based on some qualifications. So for example, did a filter here that I'm only looking for feeding organizations that have the square footage in their warehouse between 1,000 and 10,000 square feet. I activate that filter, my 55 organizations turn to 4. And I could go back to my info summary little widget and see that I only have 4 organizations that qualify for that. And I could click on them to find them. I could zoom in. So this is a very quick way to filter your data based off of attributes that you're looking for. And of course, we could do that with anything. We could say, I want warehouse footage up to 10,000 square feet, and it has a loading dock. So we can narrow it down even more. So maybe only 1 or 2 that has a loading dock and that. So the number of attributes you add, it narrows down your search. So once you find what you're looking for, and that's a map, one thing you should do is help you find something that you're looking for, find direction or find a place. Once you find the places or locations that you have certain qualifications for, once you find them, it's also useful to get information about it and share it in a typical list. So the select and export allows you to do that. So say we filter our features, we find our 4 organizations that have a certain square footage. We could use the select widget, this little widget up here. We could select it and they turn blue. We could export them as a Excel file if we like, or we could get statistics behind them. For example, we could say, you know what, here are my 4 organizations. How many of them have pallet jacks? How many of them have cold storage? What's the aggregate square footage of warehouse between all of them? I could do that by clicking statistics, and it'll give me the statistics for those organizations by that attribute. So the select and export is a wonderful way of, after you filter things, you find them, and you want to create a list, or you want to get statistics about them, it allows you to do that. The Smart Editor is perhaps the most powerful widget of all of them in the mapping system, this map app. So it allows you to edit the attributes and move the locations, create new features, and delete them. The delete function will probably be disabled during the summit because we don't want people to inadvertently delete items, but eventually the delete function will be live once the map app has a plan for use. But to let you know that for the other feature, for other functions, you can edit the information behind almost any feature on the map. So if a phone number changes, for example, for organization, or its address changes, or if its square footage for its warehouse changes, we could go into editor and actually edit that information. Or if there's a new organization that's created, we can go to the Smart Editor, drag and drop it, and create a whole new feature. In this case, we'll create a new feed organization. We drag, drop, and we fill out the attributes features for it. And Share. Share is a very simple app, but it's also very useful because there may be times in your organizations, in your collaboration, where you have a website, a shared website that's password protected, where you want to share the app among yourselves, so you can collaborate among yourselves. And this allows you to create a shorthand link, so you can share it by email. And you also can embed it into your website if you as well. So this is a quick little nice app that saves a lot of the cumbersome process of taking the code behind the map and embedded it into your website, or getting a very long link. It creates a nice short link for you, so you can share it, even the text if you need to, because you can use this app on your phone or your tablet if you want. So now that I've gone over the various widgets, we're going to use many of them in various capacities. The best way to learn is through an example. So let's go to this practice example. So your organization, say you're going to create a food security collaboration between a public school, a farmer's market, and a feed organization. So maybe you are a funder, you could be a faith organization, you could be a collaborative group, but you have grant money or going for grant money, and the basic design of your collaboration of your project is some type of collaboration between a food security collaboration between a feed organization, a public school, and a farmer's market. So, but we just don't want to do any arrangement. We have particulars around it. Say there's grant money tied to this, and the grant money says it has to be a highly socially vulnerable area, an area of high poverty and high need. Well, we could use the SVI index for that. So in this case, we're going to use the high to highest SVI. So this feeding organization must be in a census tract of high to highest SVI. It also must be a half-mile drive to at least one farmer's market and to one school within the range. But despite it being a half mile, this feeding organization must have the capacity to have a service range of 15 miles because it should be able to get supplies within a 15-mile range and have at least that capacity. It can't be just stuck to that half-mile range. So we want a feeding organization that has some capacity to go well beyond the half mile for its reach and for collaboration. So here's an example of a feeding organization. And one scenario, we might come up with the same scenario, but there is a feeding organization, this dark purple as the drive-in time around it. And here's some public schools, here's a farmer's market. We will go into the example, you'll see more detail with the actual map app. And so these are tasks. So first, we're going to make a map of the qualified feeding organization and its potential farmers market and school partners. So the feeding organization is farmers market and school partners. We're going to export the data for these features. So export the data behind the organization, the school, and the farmers market. And we're also going to get the information behind the census tract behind it. That's this orange reddish color behind here. We're going to get the data for its SVI. What's the SVI score for the home census tract? What's the obesity rate behind the home census tract? What's diabetes data behind it? So that's going to be our example. So we'll transition into that. And now we are in the web app. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when we load it. So when you load it, it'll give a little symbols like this. It'll take a minute. All the layers will load, and it might take longer if you're on a Zoom call. What pops up first too is the narrative about what the app is about. We explain mostly about that, but what's important here is that there are links to the Social Vulnerability Index and other links to another measure called Community Resilience Factors. But it's just basically a narrative. And we'll close that because it takes up some room. And you can see I can move the map around, I can zoom in and out, and it's centered, it's fixed, it opens up at Lakeland, but you can see all of Polk County if you zoom out. So here's all of Polk County, and there's no data beyond Polk County. And let me show you what some of the widgets give you an overview before we go through our example tasks. It's preset to open up to legend. So here's our legend. So the Polk County boundary is this pinkish layer right here, around here. There are supermarkets, our farmers markets, and this is our layer list. So what's checked in blue is what is on. So we know we're working in Polk County. So let's shut the Polk County boundary off because we really don't need it. So we shut it off. We go back to our legend. It's no longer there. So to show you that you could turn on and off at the layer view, it shows up on a legend. And so let me go call this up here what our task is again. So we are to make a map of a feeding organization that has a few qualifications. One it's in a census tract at least 0.72. So here are our census tracts, these SVI. We click on a census tract, we can see this one has an overall SVI of 0.27. And we click on this one's much higher, 0.78. And again, the scale for the SVI is 0 to 1, so 1 being the most vulnerable. And so in this case, this census tract is highly vulnerable. If we look over here, 0.78 is high, whereas this census tract nearby, 0.17 is very, very low. And so we are looking for a feeding organization that's with a census tract of at least 0.72, high to highest. So we can see 0.72 is high to highest. So let's go to our filter widget to do that. So we go to our filter widget and we go filter our feeding organizations. But we first going to start with our SVI. Here's the filter for SVI. We know we're going to look for census tracts that are 0.72 to 1, the highest, and we could filter that. And now our map zooms out to all the possibilities of census tracts that are only for the high to highest. And so we get an idea now, okay, there are feed organizations in here. What we could do is we could zoom in and out to find out which ones are there, but we could still use other widgets to help us narrow down our feed organizations. So let's go to the info summary to see what we got here. So we have 55 feed organizations in all of Polk County. And we want a feed organization that's one is in the census tract of qualified census tract. So we narrowed down census tract, but now we also want one that has a service range of at least 15 miles. So out of all these, if you look at our legend, this is the average distance traveled. These are organizations that have service range of average distance travel from always 0 to 100. So this one is like 100 and the one's a small 0, but we want one that has at least 15. We could go through each one and click on them to try to find it, or we use the filter widget to do that. So we go to filter features again. Here's our feed organization filter. And these are all the ways we could filter it, but we're interested in the average traveled is greater than, in this case, it's 15. We want it to be at least 15. So 14, we'll put 14 because we put 15, it's the way it's designed is greater than. So we want greater than 14. So at least 15 miles is the range. So we click filter. And it will now, let's look at our info summary again. So we went from 55 organizations now to 11. So we only have 11 organizations to look at. 11 organizations are in our field of vision. We can see them. And we want so now we want one of these organizations, all these organizations qualify at least. So we want to make sure we have one that's in a census tract, that is qualified in census tract, and that it has at least a school and a farmer's market within its range of a half mile. So let's zoom into a few candidates. So here, this one here, it doesn't have any schools nearby. Actually, make sure we have schools on first. So let's turn schools on. So yep, so here we do, we have a school. So we have a school there. And you know what, the colors are a little difficult to see. So let's change the colors. So we are in our layer list, and the social vulnerability index transparency is a little bright. So we can make it really bright like this, or you make it more transparent. So let's make it a little more transparent, because we've already narrowed down our range. And so now we could see our distance, our half mile distance. This is a half mile distance around the feed organization. So there is a school there. It's not in a tract, but it's close to a tract, but there is no farmer's market. So we don't see a farmer's market. Let's go to our info summary again. And we have no farmer's market in our field of vision. And let's see if we have a farmer's market over here. There's still no farmer's market over there. Oh, there is one farmer's market. And so say if we cannot see it on the map, we know it's there. We want to find it. I can click on it. So great, I can see it's over there. I can zoom to it. And let's see if there's a feed organization nearby. Okay, so there is a farmer's market. There are schools. There's a feed organization, but here's the half mile distance around the feed organization. The farmer's market is way too far away. So that farmer's market would not qualify in this scenario where we want the school, the feed organization, and the farmer's market to be within this little purple blob, the half mile blob. So let me zoom out again, and we could see there's another feed organization over here. There's another farmer's market. So that farmer's market is no longer in our vision. And it shows we do still have one here. And there's one here. We can zoom into it. And this gets a little more closer to it. So we do have a feed organization. We do have a school. And we do have this farmer's market, the Lakeland Downtown Farmers Curb Market. It's not exactly exactly touching the half mile range, but it's within feet of it. It's pretty close. So I would say these are great candidates. So let's look at these schools here. So we have the schools here. What kind of schools we got here? We can look at legend here. So we have elementary school and we have a middle school. So we can tell by a legend that, or we could click on it. So here's the academy. So this academy right here is elementary school. And we also have the middle school next door. So we have a situation here where we do have a feed organization where the schools are definitely within the half-mile range. We already know that this feed organization should have at least 15 driving the capacity to go beyond the scope and be able to go at least 15 miles. Let's click on it. And we can look at its information. So its distribution, its days, average distance traveled 15. So it is 15. And it has a refrigerator, pallet jack, forklift. We don't have square footage recorded here. It may have square footage for warehouse, it may not. But maybe the grant, maybe the reason why we're doing this grant, this is a scenario. Say this feeding organization cannot have square footage for warehouses. It just doesn't have the capacity, it doesn't have the capacity to expand and have warehouse square footage. So what if the collaboration is that these schools will provide warehouse square footage for this feeding organization, and the market will provide assistance with food distribution. So the distribution could happen at this location, but also could happen at the farmers market. It's an established farmers market. We could actually look into the farmers market and see by changing the map. We could see what the site looks like. We go to imagery and we see it's situated by a park. And we could see how close, like by street, how close it is within range of the 15 of the half-mile range of the Lakeland Volunteers in Medicine feeding organization. We can see it's very close. We can see various features around it. So this is how we could use our other base maps. And we could also look at a Google Street View and get a sense of the streets, how close it is. This is another way of looking at it. And we can see our academy. And so what is the so one question we need to find out is what's the SVI in this home census tract? So let's click on the census tract. So let me go back to grayscale. The grayscale, you see the colors easily. So this orangey color is the SVI census tract. Let's click on it. And what you see here is that it lights up the census tract. There are actually a couple of them. So this one's over here. Let's zoom in a little bit more so we can get it. Over here. So the overall SVI for the home census tract for this feeding organization is 0.94. That's very, very high. Means 1 is the most vulnerable. And the most social vulnerability comes from its household composition, which is 0.98, and its socioeconomic status. So this probably means this census tract has a social vulnerability, where it's probably single head of households. Head of households probably have disability. There are also head of households are probably have high poverty or low median income. The census tract does have a high severity, high SVI for minority status and also for transportation. So it's still in the high range. You can see these are the scale for high, but where the most vulnerability is coming from is low income and the type of housing, the type of household composition. So it gives us some type of profile of that. We also want to know the diabetes and obesity of this home census tract. So let's get that information too. So we go to our layer list. Right now we have social vulnerability turned on. We could shut it off. And we could turn on now our obesity. So let's turn on obesity and see what it looks like. You can see obesity and we can see social vulnerability, very similar. We can click them on and off. The obesity of this home tract is 40%, almost 41%. Contrasts in a tract not too far away, this tract, the obesity is 31%. So if we go back to our legend, we can see that the obesity scale, this is on the higher end of the obesity scale. If we click on 40, you look at this range, it's well within the red, it's very high. What's the diabetes of this tract? We could go back to our layer list, we could shut obesity off, click on diabetes. and the diabetes rate is 20%. To give an idea what that looks like, 20% is well within the high range. So this is a track that we could, with great confidence, we could say has high social vulnerability, so high social vulnerability, high obesity, and high diabetes. And we could grab that data, and we could literally copy it. We could take it, we could say, get the population and copy it and paste it into a report if we want to. And so this allows us to do that. So we're going to make a map, though. We're going to make a map of the social vulnerability and the features around this feeding organization. So we're going to zoom in a little bit here. So we'll get all the features we want all in one spot. That looks good right there. The name of the farmer's market doesn't pop up, but we could grab it and put it on there later. So we could change that, but it's the Lakeland Downtown Farmers Market. It's only a few of them. The reason why it doesn't pop up because we had a choice of having all these names pop up. It could make it crowded, but we could change that. So we do have our farmers market and our organization here. And let's do a simple task first of just making the map, and then we'll export some data. So let's go to our map widget. We can print the map. And we situated our map to grab these items. So let's do a landscape of the map. And we're going to do an image. So I like to do images or JPEGs because JPEGs allow you to take the map and export it into a PowerPoint or into a report. PDFs are great too, but PDFs could be very cumbersome if you're trying to put it into another medium, such as a PowerPoint or a report. The copy and paste of it could be a little cumbersome. So the creative process is a little faster with JPEG 2, and the more features you have, the more complex it can be. So we click on now, it's done. We click on it, and we get our map that pops up. This is the map as a result of our print map widget. So we have a map. We could now save this, export it. Now let's get the data. So we want to get the data behind these features: the Lakeland organization, the school, and the farmers market. We could click on each one and copy it. We would click on here and copy this information if we want, but that could be really cumbersome. It's much easier to grab them all at once. So here's our select and export widget. We can move it here if we want. And we're going to want, in this case, we're not interested in farmers and supermarkets. We want schools, we feed organizations. We don't need the data behind that because we have that. We don't need the social vulnerability index data. So we want is our farmers market. We do want the schools, we want the feed organization for sure. Let me move it over here. Actually position this map over here. And we're going to grab these items by doing this. Now that they are blue, that means they are selected for export. We selected our farmers market. We selected our two schools, our feed organization, and we could export this to a file. And when we open that file, we have a spreadsheet of our school in this case. So we can wrap text. So we have the school, we have its address, all the information behind it. We can do the same thing with the feed organization. We can export that, open the file, and now we have all the data behind the feed organization. We have all the data, all 34 attributes, right? There's a kitchen, refrigerator, freezer, pallet jack, and so on. So this is how we could quickly select, and if we don't want these items, we could clear it as well. So say we made a map, we able to export the data, but say we found out that this Lakeland Volunteers Medicine does have square footage of warehouse square footage. Let's work with the Smart Editor to change that. So I could click on the Smart Editor widget, and I could click on my organization here. And when I do that, all the attributes pop up. And say it does have warehouse square footage, say it has 200 square feet. I could click Save. And then when I click on it, actually, let me close this. Let me close out the Smart Edit widget. And I click on it. That information will now be present in the pop-up. of the square footage. But I'm going to remove that because this is probably not, it's not accurate. I literally just made it up for the demonstration. So I want to delete that information. So I also get to the smart editor this way. I go over here, click smart editor. It pops it up automatically over here. And I'm going to put it back to 0. And I click save. So this is a way that we can edit the information in real time on the map. Say if there is another feeding organization that we want to, there's another feeding organization or another farmer's market. Let's look at a farmer's market. So we could click on a farmer's market and say there's a farmer's market that we didn't know about. It's just north. And it's just over here. We can click it and point. And we could call it test farmer's market. And we can put in all the other information about it. We put the site names. There's a lot of attributes in here. So you may not want to put all of them in, but I just want to show you that you can add the information and fill out all the attributes for it. You can add whether it has WIC or SNAP, zip code, its address, and put all the information in there if you want. I'm not going to add it because I took off the delete function, but to show you how easy it is, you can add things, you fill out all the information about it, you click save, but I'm not going to do that for this case because I don't want to have something I need to delete, but that's just how easy it is. You click, point, and then fill it out, save. You could do this for schools, you could do this for farmers markets, CSAs, and you could do it for feeding organizations. So that concludes the overview of this mapping system. And what we'll do in the summit is we'll have you go through a practice example and that very same example, and you try to replicate what we did. And I'll be here for questions and see how you did. Thank you so much.
A lot to absorb, right? Thank you, Anthony. I can see you on the screen. It's great to have you with us virtually. Thank you for all your hard work on this project. We are very, very excited about this element of the study, and we are just so excited to see this map come to life. So a couple of things before we open it for question and answer. The intended user of this map are the people in this room, people working in this space, not necessarily the end consumer. So just keep that in mind. As you just saw, this is a very detailed and data heavy map. This is not someone looking for a feeding location. There's a different kind of map for those individuals, right? So this is the user, the back end person working like all of you in this room who needs the data for collaboration or for grants or for all kinds of things. So we wanted to make that point. You will receive a follow-up email that will have a link to a training manual and a video. So don't feel like you needed to be able to walk away and be an expert in using this map, but we thought it would be very valuable to have Anthony walk you through what it can do and open your eyes to the possibilities. And so you'll receive a follow-up with all the training materials, and we will have individuals on the Food Security Council that are responsible for a few things. They'll be responsible for keeping our map up to date because the map is lovely today, but it can, well, in fact, over the course of the study, and we published the map and things had already changed. So you know how rapidly things change, and we want this map to stay accurate or it's not really very useful, right? So we will have people responsible for keeping the map up to date and they'll be trained on that. And as a part of the Food Security Council, you'll have access to those people so that you can keep your information up to date. You can, and have access to the map so that you can use it for your needs. And so we will open it up to Q&A and use Anthony while he's here because he's a great resource. And we have people with microphones, so just make your question goes into the microphone so that Anthony can clearly hear you. I don't think that's on.
Good morning. My question is, how do you gather the data for the obesity and the diabetes?
Good question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. The data for diabetes and obesity comes from the CDC. The CDC has a data set called Places data set. It goes back to 2016, and they get that data from the surveillance survey, data that we create at the zip code level, and they have a model to predict it at the track level. And I've worked with real hospital data and the hospital data of diabetes and preventable diabetes and obesity, it fits almost perfectly with the CDC's predicted model where they predict diabetes and obesity to be. So it is publicly available. It's a 2021 release, but the caveat is it's based off of American Community Survey data from 2019. So even though you go to the CDC places data, this is 2021 release. The demographics is 2019. Hopefully in the next year and a half or so, they'll release a more up-to-date version for 2020. But diabetes and health data like that, it stays pretty stable unless you have a huge influx of population change, like 20-30% change in a year or two. Typically, settlement patterns where people tend to live and stay. Diabetes and obesity, dietary diseases tend to stay in the same area. So I wouldn't expect big changes of where you have diabetes and obesity throughout the county.
Thank you for that question. And that is a good point. And as like I mentioned earlier, how we will have someone responsible for keeping the map up to date. So some of the data is data that's readily available. But the nice part about having our own custom map is that we can take all of that data, health data, and all the different census tract data, and layer it with our custom Polk County data. And so that's where the magic happens, when you can see it all in one place. So I'm glad you pointed that out, that some of the data we gathered, any of the local data we gathered, while other pieces are publicly available. Other questions? Okay, over here.
So if we add data to the map as an organization, let's say in Haines City, would someone in Lakeland be able to access it, or how's it shared among different organizations?
So anything that's added to the map, I shouldn't answer for Anthony, but anything that's added to the map would be seen by anyone accessing it in real time.
And that is correct.
Okay, if there's nothing further, I can definitely see an opportunity for future food security council meetings as well, where we can do some little workshops and really use this map and get into detail. But definitely take advantage of that follow-up email that we'll be sending you with the training manual as well as the videos. And you can also reach out to us if you have any follow-up questions or if you're curious about how to use it. So thank you, Anthony, so much for everything you've done and for joining us today. We appreciate
Thank you very much, and everyone. It's really inspiring to see everyone there. It's quite incredible. Only a year or two after a pandemic, and still into a pandemic, to come together for this a very important community building process.
Yes, and I again want to highlight the Health Council of West Central Florida. The resources that they came in at just the right time to provide to our council just accelerated the work that we were able to do. This would not have been possible without your support, and they've worked really closely with Anthony as well to make sure this map was everything we needed it to be, and just wanted to recognize you guys once again. So what we're going to do is proceed with the agenda. We are going to make a slight change, and we're going to have Sarah go after the break so that we can stay on track for our break, make up a few minutes. I'll leave up Anthony's contact information for just a second in case anyone wants to jot that down. But we will make up a few of those minutes since we started a little bit late. Okay. I see people taking pictures, so I won't move just yet. Cassandra, do you know if his contact information is in the training manual? I'm not really sure, but okay. So really quickly, as a wrap up, I just want to touch on some themes and observations with everything that we have touched on for our study. I'm just going to touch on three main points that came to light by the Health Council as they completed our study. And the first one is the need for streamlined collaborative network, which we're building here today and throughout the Food Security Council. And so anytime you are A, in a county as large as Polk County, and B, working on a problem as big and crazy as hunger, you know, you need a streamlined network that can collaborate effectively. And you can move mountains when you have that. And so that is really what we're trying to build. And so hopefully today we're lighting the spark that you'll all stay engaged in this process. And over the next few months, we'll really be formalizing what that network will look like and how it will operate so that it's a good use of your time. The last thing we want you to do is come to a monthly meeting and we get nowhere, right? We want this to be a working group that is truly making impacts. And we'll talk about a little bit more about that in a moment. The second thing is another seed that I would like to plant, and that is this concept of a hub. And a hub can be a lot of different things. And there's a lot of models across the country and in the state of Florida. You're going to hear in a little bit from Feeding Tampa Bay. They're going to talk about a type of hub, which they call an empowerment center. And it's really centered around services and things that can lift people out of poverty and food insecurity. But we have Bobby Williams in the room from Freedom Tour. I talked to him this morning and, you know, he has visions, you know, he's already got the workings of a hub and he has visions for what he's building in Lake Wales. And Polk County is big enough that we need one and we need many kinds, right? And so this is, I think, this group could really dream big and create a hub that could, for example, have shared storage space that we talked about earlier, right? We have a lot of organizations that are limited by what they can do because they cannot store refrigerated or freezer goods. They don't have a loading dock to take things. Some of those simple logistics, right? This could be a shared space that's a public-private partnership, for example, where some of that storage space could be there. My dream would be that it would have either a partnership with or some type of urban or rural community-centered garden where we can teach the community about gardening, we can teach our students, and we can also supply that food out into the community. And then alongside that, you can have a shared kitchen space where you can do cooking classes, right? Because one of the things we talked about earlier was that you can't just give a box of fresh produce to a family and expect that they're going to take it home and know how to cook it and how to produce it or how to process it and feed their family with it, right? So there's all kinds of opportunities for shared kitchen space, for education. Like the sky is the limit of this model of a hub. And so start brainstorming, start thinking big. And if we work together, those are some of the things that we can achieve, I think, here in Polk County and really start to meet a lot of our objectives. And separately, I wanted to just touch again on the fact that we definitely identified that need for storage space. And so the hub could provide that, but there could be other opportunities where the storage space, where trucks can come and go, or even the need for better distribution and refrigerated trucks has definitely come to light as well. So those are just three of the things that we wanted to point out. There's so many avenues and, you know, paths that we could go down today, but those are some of the ones that we wanted to touch on really briefly and just get your wheels turning and, you know, think big, think creative, and then bring those ideas to the Food Security Council so that we can start bringing them into reality. All right, so before we take a break, I just wanted to quickly let you know what to expect after lunch today. So we have a panel discussion after lunch if you're looking at your agenda. And then if you're like me, the second you see something like discussion or prioritization or workshop, I get a little anxious, right? Like, am I gonna have to talk to somebody I don't know? Am I gonna know what to say? Am I gonna know what to do? So really quickly, the last thing on our agenda today is so important. And I want to just let you get excited about it and let you know that it's basically going to be a giant brain dump of everybody in the room because we may not get to interact with all of you if you are not well suited for the Food Security Council. So we don't want you to leave today without giving us some information. And so it'll be very easy to do. You'll be working, you know, at your table, nothing crazy. You don't have to worry about getting up and standing and reporting out. And so just to put your mind at ease and get excited about that, we want to make sure that we get information that you have to share with us before you leave. We did not want to miss that opportunity and just talk at you all day long. So right now we'll take a quick break. The bathrooms are in the lobby. We're going to do about 10 minutes. There are snacks. Thank you, John Michael. There are snacks in the back, water, and I think tea and maybe some coffee. Thank you to Steve Warner for making sure we had coffee today. So
I want to introduce you all to Sarah Campbell. She's a Grants and Projects Development Specialist for our Polk County, the Health and Human Services Department. We had the pleasure of hearing from Sarah at a Food Security Council meeting a couple months ago. And I know some of you heard that presentation at that meeting, but many of you did not. So we just thought we really needed to share what an amazing resource Sarah is and what she can do for nonprofits specifically. So I'll turn it over to her to just give a quick overview, and her contact information is on her first and last slide as well. So thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Rod. Good morning, everyone. All right, I'm just going to talk for a couple minutes. I want you all to have my contact information so I can potentially help you. I am a grant writer. I have a lot of experience with grant writing for nonprofits. Before I came to Florida 2 years ago, for 7 years before that, I was the director of an emergency shelter for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. We had 35 beds in the facility, so I know what it's like to need to feed a lot of mouths every day. I also know what it's like to not have enough bread or milk in the fridge, but somebody shows up and they have 500 pounds of walnuts. So you take the walnuts and you look up walnut recipes. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about how I can potentially use my experience to help you. As a grant writer for Polk County, I have access to a grant search database, so I can scour all of the grant opportunities available across the nation. I can look for specific things like hunger, but I can also look for, a broad range of other things. So if you need grants relating to hunger and food security, then I'm already sending those opportunities to Rod and Jenna. So they'll be forwarding you those things. Make sure you're on their mailing list. If there are other things that you're looking for, if maybe you are serving a specific population, the senior population or youth, and you just have food on top of that, then contact me and I'll be searching for those specific opportunities, and then I can get back to you if I see them. Other than searching for opportunities, I can help you with grant applications that you're working on. If you have something that you're almost done with, you want me to look through and edit, I'm happy to do that before you submit. If you have a grant application that maybe you didn't receive the award for funding and you want to know why, a lot of times you don't get any feedback. So if you want to give those applications to me and say, what would you have done different? So maybe we could have gotten this money. I'm happy to go through and restructure that application and say, use this information for next time, because a lot of times grants ask you for the same things over and over. So I can edit for you anything you're ready to turn in. And then I want to help you create those stronger goals and objectives. A lot of times funding sources want to see projects that are going to make the biggest impact in the community, and that's what they want to put their name on. So sometimes it just takes sitting down and thinking outside of the box. What do we want to be able to say that we're doing that nobody else is doing? And that goes along with collecting those success stories. When you are doing programming, you want to make sure you're tracking what you're doing so you can prove that you're doing great things for your community. That's something you want to highlight in all grant applications. So make sure that throughout the year you're posting on your social media what your success stories are, so other people can add to those stories and comment, and you can see what a huge impact you're actually having on your community. Mention at least one way your program is different from the rest. This is huge. You see, what's your emotional hook? You need to be able to say in a grant application why your program is different from all the rest. A lot of you guys are providing food to the community, so now you need to think of that extra step. What else are you doing that nobody else is doing, that whoever is reading that grant application is going to say, wow, this is something I've never thought about before. This is neat. I want to give them money. All right, that's all I have to say. I just wanted to give you some quick tips, but make sure you know that you can reach out to me anytime. I will meet with you. I will send you that presentation that I had given before if you'd like to see the longer detailed presentation. So I hope you know that I'm here to help you.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you. And Sarah will be here for the rest of the summit as well, so feel free to talk to her at lunch or any other time here, because she'll be here and is a great resource for us all. Next, we have Dr. Simone's presentation on food safety and distribution.
Good morning. My name is Amy Simone, and I am a professor and extension food safety specialist with the University of Florida, IFAS. And it is my pleasure to join this program, the Polk County Hunger Action Summit today. Food safety and nutrition is my passion. Well, I quote from my one of my colleagues, if it is not safe, it is not nutritious. This slide will provide you outline of some of the things that I will cover today. First of all, the foodborne illness data and statistics. Then I will provide some of the food safety resources. Then we will touch base on shelf life of food. Then we will segue into nutritional quality and dietary requirements. Then we will cover resources for food pantries, food bank, training priority, and the rest of the time will be focused on question and answer. This slide will provide you with some of the foodborne illness data statistics from the US. And the first link is the link to the CDC website. Okay, we are going to switch gear a little bit. So we are going to provide some information about food safety regulation. And I believe food pantry, food bank, the operation mode of those operations are very similar to the retail type food operation. And then the other good food source of food safety information is from the SNAP-Ed. SNAP-Ed is the food nutrition education program for specific population. And these are some of the people that would have access to food bank and food pantry. This particular slide provides some food safety information for consumer levels type material. So I made a screenshot from the current dietary recommendation for Americans. The other very important information related to food safety at food pantry is that it is about shelf life of food. When we talk about shelf life of food, it is pretty complicated because shelf life of food will depend on food itself, the property of food itself, and then the time and temperature. So some particular food will be shelf stable at room temperature, while some food are not stable at room temperature. They have to be refrigerated. And if they are not properly refrigerated, they become unsafe. And this is one of the issues that cause people to get sick and then get confused. And then sometimes food that are still good, people throw away thinking that they are going bad. And then the other food, they think it is still good, but it is unsafe. So I provide 2 links here for people to help themselves in case they need to know what type of food they have and what would be the expected shelf life. So in the first link, this is the site from the USDA. It is an app. People can download this app to put on their phone, and then when they want to know the potential shelf life of specific food at specific condition, they can type in the food. If you click on this link, you can type in and you can get the information about what would be the appropriate storage information. And the second website, this is pretty much similar to the first website, but this is originated from the Food Industry Association. So now we are going to switch gear to nutritional requirement and or dietary requirements. And then this first link right here is the newest dietary guideline for Americans. And the link here will take you to a PDF file to document that is quite lengthy. And then some of the key requirement for this part is that to increase fruit and vegetables. And that is very important because I understand that some of the food pantries in the recent days have included some fresh fruit and vegetable in their offering. And then I summarize some of the informations that are pertinent to the food safety requirement or information as resources related to produce safety right here. And then also the other part of the change recommendation is to suggest increased seafood consumption. And then here, of course, when you change some recommendation, you have some attachment of some recommendation or guideline. And here there is a recommendation and guideline about seafood safety. And some of the things are related to some pregnant women or children, but we won't cover at this time. And this would be the resource for the audience. So now there's another information site that is very useful, and many people may not have access to this information or do not know before. So our government, the USDA, has kept very comprehensive nutrient database in this website. And as of now, this website is searchable. So if you go to this website and go to the search, you can type in some type of food, and then you will get some nutritional information in different kind of format. So this will give information in case you want to learn about nutritional quality of certain food products, raw, processed, canned, freeze, frozen, or boil, and so forth, or different cooking method. There will be information on that. And this is sort of a live database. Every so often when we have new information, new compositional information, then the data will be updated. So now we are going to switch gear to some of the information that is pertinent to this symposium. So here, basically, in terms of food safety information, we can find some information from this site, from the USDA SNAP-Ed. And so here, they have pretty good information, simple information for safe food pantry. And they have some information about perishable food, what type of food to be taken in safely. And then they also touch bases on food safety during emergencies and disaster. And then I like one of these resources from the University of Wisconsin Extension. They have this food pantry project. So they have pretty good comprehensive training programs that is pretty pertinent to some of the issues that are faced by food bank. For example, I put in a few details on putting safe food on the shelf, meaning they talk about policy, how to set policy, and how to educate donors. And they have some information about food safety as related to produce, because as I mentioned in the previous slide, we talk about the recommendation to increase consumption of fresh produce or vegetable. Then we have also some information about that. And produce safety is very broad issue, and there could be a separate training by itself. And then they also have information about transporting, handling, storing, and then talking about how to follow food safety rules. And then on top of that, they have some information on how to educate recipients about food safety, how to help the recipients to take care of their food when they take that home. And University of Florida, at our EDIS website, we have some information for food safety on different subject area. Well, we do not have everything out there, but if we have enough requests or questions, then we come up with some information that would be helpful and useful for people. So now we are going to touch bases about training priority. So here, as far as I understand, there are different types of food bank, food pantries. Some food pantries only distribute shelf-stable food, and some food pantry may expand to offer more of other type of food, such as perishable food and so forth. Some pantry also offer some cooked food that has to be prepared on premise. So that would dictate the type of food safety training that the volunteers or the people working in the organization need to do. And then on top of that, if the facility or the organization have larger distribution system, they have to have many more type of training, and maybe they might have some sanitation program. And I understand that some organization, for example, Feed America, they even have some third-party audit to audit their food safety information or system and so forth. And then some of the training program may have to help people or organization to come up with food safety programs to fit the specific type of operation. So with that, we are going to swing back in the state of Florida. Right now, in terms of a training program in Florida, we have different level of training program. And over the years, I work with some food banks, and some I only go in and give basic food safety training information. I gather information from the Partnership for Food Safety Education and keep the training. And then some may want a little bit more formal training. Some may require food handler training level. Some may require higher level training, such as food safety manager training. And here at this point in the state of Florida, there are about 6 programs that are accepted by Florida Department of Health, FDACS, and DBPR. So these are just current requirement. So in conclusion, again, I provide some of the overview of the resources on food safety and nutrition pertinent to food pantry, food bank, nonprofit organization. And again, with the very small amount of time, this is very much limited information. This is just the tip of an iceberg, and I will be willing to take questions and comment or suggestion, and we can go on with the Q&A. Before we have the first question, I'd like to give shout out to my local counterpart, the Extension Office in Polk County, and you have a great resources right there in your county.
My question just has to do with some of the certifications and training. You were talking about the different websites and such. Is there any way that we can get some of your notes or slides? Because I could not write fast enough to keep up, because I think it's important that we all have people who are currently up to date on what all the different safe food handling and such is with, and how we can get more people. Because right now we have just a few people with those certifications, but it'd be great to know how to get more people so we can, do more.
Definitely. Thank you. This is a great question. I will provide additional information for this, and I will make a summary for you for the conference organizer.
Yeah, we'll make sure and get that out to everybody in our follow-up email.
Any other questions?
So while we are waiting for question, I like to give another advertisement for some of my colleagues here. We have an excellent FCS agent, Andrea Nicolai in Polk County, and I believe Miss Nicole Walker here in the room also is connected with us. If you need any training training, Andrea herself is an RD, and she has a great expertise in nutrition, and she can help you with that. And when there are some more advanced training or information that is needed, she will contact me, and then we will make sure that things happen for you.
Thank you. And Andrea's over by the door there if you want to wave, those that don't know you. And Nicole is in the back if you want to wave. There you go. Thank you very much. Any other questions for Dr. Simone? Okay, thank you very much. We really appreciate your input today. Thank you. And we will get that information out to you. Next up, I want to introduce Matt Spence, the Chief Programs Officer for Feeding Tampa Bay, and Kelly Sims, the Chief Development Officer for Feeding Tampa Bay. And they're going to present on some ideas for their empowerment center that they have established in Pinellas, and they're bringing the concept to Polk, and then some other information. Thank you. Yep.
Good morning. I'm Kelly Sims, the Chief Development Officer for Feeding Tampa Bay, here with my colleague Matt Spence, who will follow in just a moment. Our goal is to share ultimately with you today the example of our newly formed Feeding Pinellas Empowerment Center and how that model could be brought to Polk County. But I want to start by giving you just a little bit of background as to how we got there. So Feeding Tampa Bay follows the food bank model that many of you are familiar with. We have national and local relationships with retailers, farmers, significant relationships with manufacturers, so that food can be developed, brought in together, and then ultimately out into a network of agency and partners who work with us, as well as direct distributions that we have stepped in where needed. Very important facts to let you know a little bit more about Feeding Tampa Bay that maybe you do or do not know, but we do serve 10 counties in the West Central Florida region. We serve 450 agencies who help us do our work. They're very important to us, and we're incredibly thankful for the relationship we have with our agencies. You'll see that we're funded and sponsored by corporations Foundations, and a variety of other partnerships, 6,000 that help us do our work. And last year, we just delivered and distributed about 95 million meals. Obviously, COVID really increased the amount of need in our counties, which you of course experienced as well. And we're tracking to serve about 85 million meals this year. 95%, I'm a development officer, so I'm always going to tell you that 98% of the funds that come into Feeding Tampa Bay go directly into programs, which is really unusual in our market. And right now we'll use about 5,000 volunteers to do our work. Our goal, like your goal, and I saw in the vision of the food insecurity report that we all looked at this morning, is a hunger-free Polk County, a hunger-free region. And in our world, like yours, we define that as the fact not that people won't encounter hunger, but they'll know where to go get food. We've broken down every barrier to access that we can, and that we're increasingly increasing the amount of nutritious, healthy food. So it's building both health and capability. Our goal is to take our region to a hunger-free region by 2025. And it's important to note that there are food banks in the United States that have achieved that in their region and have sustained that over time. So it sounds lofty, but it's doable. Very briefly, as we established that 2025 goal, we also said we were going to do that in 4 different avenues of increased work. I'm not going to go into these in depth, but I will give you an overview in that Evolve has to do with creating innovative new ways to get food to people who we hadn't had access before, where people are already congregated, schools, libraries, other places, rather than folks having to find us on a Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock. Energize is that idea we spoke about a moment ago. We set a goal of 80% foods to encourage to be distributed, meaning the outer ring of the grocery store, which is how all of us want to feed our families, and that's what we want to do for those we serve as well. Engage means exactly what we're doing in this room today, and that is collaborating with other partners to say, how can we be more efficient about our work? And then empower, Matt will speak about as he talks about the Empowerment Center, but it's really taking that moment where we distribute food to say, how can we bring you to personal sustainability so that you can go on and maybe never come back to a food line again. As we've learned throughout the morning and will continue to learn, there's roughly 24.5 million missing meals in Polk County. It's a big number. Last year, Feeding Tampa Bay distributed about 10.5 million meals. We're very fortunate to have a relationship with 83 agencies who've helped us do that. In fact, this month alone, we'll have 31 mobile drops in Polk County. And then where needed, as mentioned before, we have direct distributions. And you all know during COVID, we instituted the Mega Pantry, which is distributing over 1,000 families meals at a time. And we did 55 of those during COVID. So I want to pass to Matt now to talk more specifically about our interventions in Polk County.
Thank you, Kelly. So I think the key question that we wanted to be able to offer an answer to today is, why is Feeding Tampa Bay relevant to us here in this room in Polk County? And what can we offer? You know, building on a couple of the stats that Kelly shared, we know that about 85% of the food that Feeding Tampa Bay distributes doesn't go directly from a Feeding Tampa Bay staff member or volunteer hand into the hand of someone in need. It goes through a partner agency. So there's no question that we understand the importance and the value of our agency network. And we appreciate all that everyone does to make sure that food that comes from all across the country, almost 60% of the food distributed through Feeding Tampa Bay into Polk County comes from outside of Polk County. So I think that's a really important thing to just touch on, because Polk County, although it produces an incredible amount of food in a pretty wide variety, does not produce enough to feed every resident of Polk County. I heard mention earlier of food sovereignty, right? That's an eventual goal for us to talk about. Can we get to a place where 24 million missing meals in Polk County, all of that is necessary is produced here in Polk County? I think maybe we can, but at the moment, I think it is relevant to know that 60% of those 10 million meals came from outside. And that's the benefit of the Feeding America network, right? If you're not familiar with how Feeding Tampa Bay and Feeding America interact, I'll go in on that just very, very briefly. The food banks, there's 200 of us around the country who are Feeding America affiliates that cover every county in the United States, actually created the national network. So Feeding America reports to us as opposed to the other way around. They exist at a national level to serve us. They are the ones who gather really large national relationships. You know, Publix doesn't want to have to work with and have individual contracts with every food bank in the 8 states they work in. So they create a contract with Feeding America, which we are then responsible to live into through our partners, and some of it directly as well. So that's just an idea of kind of the structure and how Feeding America and our affiliates become really critical to food relief on the ground. So I'll touch on a couple of things we're doing here in Polk County. I'm actually going to skip over a lot of the data. We spent a lot of time with that this morning. You have incredible data that was produced by this group, and we are very excited to dig into it. In fact, Kelly and I can already think of our team members back at the warehouse who are going to be eagerly diving into those maps and putting out all sorts of interesting things. I'll share some highlights about what we're currently doing in the community. We've been working with Polk County schools over the last couple of years to build out our school pantry program. It's a slight variation on a traditional backpack program that involves the family more directly, provides more robust meals than just snacks and single serve items. And it incorporates an opportunity for the schools to engage more deeply with their students. So we wound slowly through the Polk County Schools contracting process, but do have an MOU in place where we will begin to build out school pantry responses across the county. We currently have one with the Tassel Project. I'm sure you're familiar with that, but it involves working directly with students who do not currently have housing or have unstable housing situations. And so there are a variety of ways in which we can reach the entirety of the county and students in need all across the community through that project, but we will be directly in schools with a physical presence of food, refrigerators, freezers, and partnerships to distribute that directly to families. In addition, we have a very robust partnership with Baycare. They're fantastic community partners with us. And Polk County was actually the region that really got the ball rolling in developing on the ground solutions. So we have at both Winter Haven Hospital and at Bartow Regional Medical, we have what we call our healing bag program. So when someone is admitted into one of those 2 Baycare facilities, they screen positive for food insecurity, which is a much longer story for another time, but was a challenge to get into their electronic medical record, but now makes a huge difference that it is a part of the questioning process upon admittance into a Baycare facility. So they actually use the USDA screener for food insecurity, which is a huge leap forward because it provides us opportunity to really address the issue. So the bags are then provided upon discharge to patients with certain disease conditions that are very nutrition related. That program will continue to grow. Baycare has been an incredible sponsor of it over the years. And then the last thing, we have a food prescription program that is developed across a variety of our counties, but here in Polk, in partnership with Simply Healthcare, where we use a similar process to what we're doing in the Baycare hospitals, but actually have a refillable prescription for healthy food over time. So this is an innovation that we've seen in a couple of other food banks around the country, but really is pretty new to the food relief system. And where we're directly targeting individuals who are both food insecure and nutrition deficient that leads to healthcare issues. We believe strongly as an organization that food insecurity is a healthcare crisis. And in order to address that, our healthcare partners are critically important. And so we've built those relationships over the last several years, and we will continue to do so. We believe very strongly in it. I have some data here about investment, and in particular, the impact of SNAP and SNAP meals into the county. If you don't know this, this was new information to me a couple of years ago as we started to dive deeper into it. For every meal that the food relief system gets into the community, last year that was almost 6 billion meals across Feeding America's partners. SNAP is responsible for 9 for every one that the food relief system gets into the community. And it's also, as we all know, an opportunity for someone to shop with dignity right next to you or me in the same stores that we shop in, without any stigma, without any challenges or barriers to access. So there's some really important numbers here, but I think that $13 million in annual income directly into the homes of individuals in Polk County through the SNAP program is a pretty important number. That's actually one, if you're if you're doing any advocacy work, very important to share with federal officials. They understand the connection directly there, and every 2 years the Farm Bill has to be redone, and so it's a pretty important part of our work there. So I'll jump into what Rod actually asked us to talk about, which is the Feeding Pinellas Empowerment Center. We were about 2 years ago, we started the process of building out a localized solution that really is a holistic approach. This is nothing new. Feeding Tampa Bay didn't invent this, right? But it addresses kind of a no wrong door approach to working with people and our neighbors who experience food insecurity. Because what we've found is that food insecurity almost never exists in isolation from other individual challenges within the family, right? There are almost always other challenges going on. And so our goal was to bring in partners to that opportunity that we see all the time in the food relief world, where someone comes and says, I need assistance, I need a bag of groceries, or I need a hot meal today. That happens more than any other social service interaction. Someone coming in to receive food assistance. And we know for the first 38 years of our existence, we weren't fully taking advantage of that moment where a neighbor approached us and said that they were in need. We did our best to provide food, and that is an incredibly important intervention, but it's not the only one. And so we also, in this process, realized, we knew, but we activated in a new way, that we did not want to do everything ourselves. We wanted to come alongside partners who were already doing great work and offer those partners access to individuals who are coming to us, who they might be spending a lot of time and effort and money to reach out to find, to offer opportunities to access their services. So the idea behind an empowerment center is that it's a magnet, and food is the most powerful part of that magnet. At the heart of that is a Trinity Cafe. We have 3 Trinity Cafes in the Feeding Tampa Bay network that provide a free, hot, restaurant quality meal to anyone who walks through the door without question, without qualification. If you come to us and you say you want a free meal today, then we will treat you like you just walked into a restaurant. You will sit down at a table, you'll be served by a volunteer, a healthy 3-course meal, and you'll have that table as long as you want until you're ready to get up. And that's a really critical, important part to us, not only because it draws people in, but because it puts us eye to eye with our neighbors in need. It allows us to treat them with dignity that they deserve. That also opens the door to other relationships. So we have a client choice pantry on site at the Feeding Pinellas Empowerment Center that is very high quality, very nutritious, open to anyone who comes through the door. We're open multiple times a week. We have special senior shopping hours. We'll be increasing that availability as the Empowerment Center grows, but it's a really critical next step response. So, that meal is food for today. That bag of groceries is food for tomorrow. But then the real dynamite of an empowerment center is we wrap other services around that moment, and that's food for a lifetime. It's not just access to benefits like SNAP and WIC and CHIP. It's also Baycare having their community health nurses on site. In this case, Pinellas County Schools was actually our first partner to move in with adult basic education and English for speakers of other language classes. We have legal assistance on site. We have transportation assistance on site. We have our own team that does food, what we call food plus work, but is really system navigation and social services, kind of mitigation work. We have that on site and a variety of other partners who come in to wrap everything necessary around those individuals so we can move them out of a food line forever. Slow to load. So that's the Feeding Pinellas Empowerment Center and our work at Feeding Tampa Bay. Are there any questions, anything we can share additionally about our work? Yeah. That's a very important part of the presentation that I should have gotten to. We actually did a lot of research and used a lot of the same data that was presented earlier to determine where it should be, because Pinellas County is a very, very diverse county. There's 27 different municipalities in a very tight area. They all think they're special. They all are very special, but there are some that have high levels of service tied with high levels of need. There are some that have low levels of service but have low need. And then there's a particular area in the middle of the county that's actually unincorporated called Lellman. And it is an area of very, very high need. In fact, it is higher than South St. Petersburg in all the ways you want to be lower, and lower than South St. Petersburg in all the ways you want to be higher. So it is actually the #1 community of need in Pinellas County, and it exists in a dearth of services. And so we found a location that was on a bus line right next to another, right on an east-west bus line, right next to a north-south bus line, and in a community where there are a lot of low-income families. It's located right next to an elementary school where there are 26 different languages spoken in the homes of the children that attend that elementary school. So it is an area of very, very high need and of low service. And that would be our goal when we work with this group to expand this solution into Polk County. We'll work together to find the right space. We don't want to overlap, right? We don't want to compete. We want to partner. The community is called Lellman. It's right, the small town right next to it is called Kenneth City. Most people would think of it as Pinellas Park. It's right off of 54th Avenue North near 66th Street, if you know Pinellas County. Yes. So initially, it was privately funded, grants, individual donations. But we are working to diversify that funding stream as we go along, and Kelly can speak much more eloquently to that than I could.
We continue to be primarily funded through private donations, although CARES Act funding certainly allowed us to expand at a time when we happen to be starting that facility. But over time, honestly, the real answer is it's going to be privately funded.
And the one activity I forgot to mention as well is we do job training. So most of that happens in our warehouse, but we are expanding that into our empowerment centers. And that would be the goal over time as well. And I think here in Polk County, we would probably also address the concern that was listed earlier about a food redistribution and storage facility. We would probably have a small one there. We don't currently have that in Pinellas County, but it is kind of part of the future dreaming. And one of the reasons we chose the location we chose, because there's space for it. The job training that we did just a couple of weeks ago at Feeding Pinellas was actually a barista training sponsored by Starbucks.
Looks like that's it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Amanda Wilson with the Department of Children and Families, and she's going to talk about those SNAP benefits, kind of a tie into some of the things they mentioned, and how to apply online, and how we can all help serve those customers and clients more efficiently.
Thank you. And I do realize I'm standing in between lunch, so I will be brief and not take more than my allotted time, promise. So I'm with the Department of Children and Families. Again, my name is Amanda Wilson. I have been with the department for 17 years, so sincere passion for serving children and families in our community, and I absolutely adore what I do. So just a little bit about me. For our Economic Self-Sufficiency Program, as mentioned, this is our umbrella program that houses, so to speak, our SNAP program. And you've heard, I think just about everyone mentioned the SNAP program, which is our food assistance program. So under our Economic Self-Sufficiency umbrella, we determine eligibility for SNAP, which is our food assistance, our temporary cash assistance, and our Medicaid. But I know we are all here about food, so we'll talk about our SNAP benefits. So SNAP is our Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Many people know it, formerly known as our food stamp program, but essentially it's providing supplemental nutrition for families that are in need. It is our anti-hunger program. It is a nationwide program funded by the USDA, and low-income seniors, people with disabilities, families with children, and individuals that are in need below the 200% or low-income families, I should say. Ultimately, we do look at eligibility criteria, primarily 200% gross income, but there are some other eligibility requirements also. Since we've been talking about getting nutritious food on the tables of families, I am so glad that that is a topic of discussion. I have included a partnership with Feeding Florida, a link here that can be shared. It is to our Fresh Access Bucks. And so what that is our partners across the state. We have partnered with farmers markets and organizations, small corner stores, grocery stores, to accept our SNAP benefits from our customers. As you heard, our SNAP customers actually input a lot of finances back into our counties. But if you shop as a SNAP customer at one of our participating farmers markets, which our first presenter talked about the Lakeland Farmers Market, the Curb Market, that is one of our participating partners. If you use your SNAP bucks there, it matches dollar for dollar. So you can buy fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, and every dollar you spend up to a certain amount, you will get $1, and it's funded through the USDA also. So just encouraging nutritious, healthy eating for our families. Eligibility and income requirements for our families. You have to meet gross income requirements here. We just kind of wanted to give a brief overview of the gross income 200% eligibility, which you will see on the fourth column over. You cannot, essentially, if you're someone applying for food assistance, you cannot go over that 200%. Unless there are other variant circumstances, which we take into consideration the other columns. So you will see the amount of the household. Our applications are processed based on household size, income, and expenses. That's it. So you'll see the household size on the left, and then the maximum allotment for a household size. That's the third column, the maximum allotment. So I know one of our introductory speakers talked about, the the 65-year-old who was not eligible based on just close by the income. What I would say to our professionals that are helping individuals like that is please reach out to your local department, which it would be my office, and you'll have my information. But we do have client relations coordinators, or anyone within our department can assist to look just a little bit closer when we talk about disabled seniors, people with special situations. We may be able to look a little closer at their case and maybe take into consideration some medical expenses that aren't always taken into consideration when we're generally processing cases. So when you have those special circumstances, please do not hesitate to reach out to our offices to see just that we've taken everything into consideration when we're considering eligibility for these clients. There are some ineligible criteria. Well, in order to be eligible, you have to have a social security number. We have to know living arrangements. You have to have an ID. You have to have a citizenship status, residency, and cooperate with child support enforcement, work regulations, and any other quality control for our food assistance programs. You will be ineligible if you are convicted of drug trafficking, are running from a felony warrant, have purposely broke program rules in the past, or a non-citizen without a qualifying status. So those are some things when you see, potentially eligible recipients that are not receiving SNAP benefits. Those are some of the things that can make individuals ineligible. And in addition, I just wanted to share some numbers of our SNAP clients. We did have in the month of April, 133,741 SNAP clients in Polk County. Our team processed 19,065 applications. 13,182 of those were approved in the month of April 2022, and 5,883 were denied. And reasons for denial vary, but our top 3 reasons were missed appointments. So when you're helping individuals apply for SNAP, I would encourage you to make sure that you are asking them to have up-to-date information in terms of contact information, email addresses, phone numbers, a way that we can reach them so that they don't miss their appointments, and didn't verify their income is the number 2 reason. They don't get the information back to us verifying what they need, verifiable documents in order to determine them eligible. And then the third top reason is just they're over the 200% threshold for income requirements. So there's 3 ways you can apply for access or for ESS benefits. Our Access Online is our automated community connection to economic self-sufficiency. And our overall goal is economic self-sufficiency. But this is the website, myflorida.com, Access Benefits. And you can apply right online, or you can find a community partner site. Here in Polk County, we have almost 70 individualized community partner sites. If you go on our website, you can search who's a community partner site. Thank you so much, Central Florida Behavioral Healthcare, because they are a community partner. And we have many community partners here in Polk County. So you can search all of the community partners that can help your families apply for benefits, or they can complete a paper application and submit it to our local storefront. So applying online, you simply go to our website, and this is exactly what you'll see, and you can apply for benefits. It'll walk you through how to apply. When you click apply for benefits, it'll make you create an account. If you are helping someone to create an account, please make sure they know their username and password, because we see that a lot too. People tend to create usernames and passwords, and then they don't know their username and password. And then it's hard for them to get back into their account or change anything or update anything or, get us the information that we need. You can look for a community partner site. Again, this is right on our website. You can select Polk County and you'll see 7 pages of community partners that pull up. And again, we have a lot of partners in our community. You can direct your families or anyone to our community partner site, and they will assist families in applying for benefits. Or you can also search for our storefront online and download a paper application right online, print it out, and take it to one of our storefronts. Here is where you can download a paper application. So what's next after I apply for assistance? Right now, it says 30 days. Typically in the normal world, it'd be about 30 days. Since COVID hit and we had an influx of applications, it has been a little longer to process. Please encourage folks not to call the call center to check up on their application. It's taking a little longer than 30 days, more like 60 to 90 days or so. But we are processing applications just as fast as we can. As you heard, just in Polk County alone, there were 19,000 applications processed, over 19,000. So once your application is submitted, we will determine if an interview is needed. And that's where that interview, comes into place. You may get a notification that says, we're going to do an interview with you this date and time, please call this number. If you don't call and you miss your interview, then you may be denied services. After that, may ask for additional documents. If additional documents are asked for, you need to submit the additional documents. And then after everything is received, then eligibility will be determined. And whether you're eligible or not eligible, you will receive some sort of correspondence in the mail, a letter explaining why. And last but not least, we do have our Hope Florida portion of economic self-sufficiency. So I wanted to make sure that I share this. Hope Florida is a pathway to prosperity. Again, our goal is economic self-sufficiency for all of our families. So if you are a family that is receiving SNAP benefits, you qualify for our Hope Florida program. We actually have our care navigators here today. They're all together at this table. They help families to develop goals based on their barriers to food security, if it's a SNAP client, and they will develop a plan, help families overcome those barriers and really walk through bringing them to self-sufficiency. So they can contact our hotline to get connected to one of these young ladies who will then meet with them, go through a whole program, go through a whole process to develop a plan, and then get them to economic self-sufficiency. Lofty goal for them, but they do it each and every day. That's all I got. Any questions? Yes. You do have to have an address. And again, somewhere where if you're getting correspondence, you actually get it, because we need to be able to correspond with you. So, and there's ways to get an address if you're homeless, a general address. So hopefully that's not a barrier. Any other questions? Way back? I can't hear, I'm sorry.
I'll bring you the mic.
Is the HOPE program accessible to the clients once they're approved for food stamps or SNAP benefits, or how do they get involved with the HOPE program?
So good question. You would be eligible if you're approved, but any family in need, you don't have to be a recipient of our SNAP benefits, I think, right? Is that true? Yes, that is absolutely true. So you can just go on our website, Pathway to Prosperity, and or just Google Hope Florida. I can share the website also, and any family can call and be connected to a care navigator, or anyone can call and be connected to a care navigator. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy lunch, and then we will have someone a little that will go more in depth about SNAP services and DCF on the panel. So enjoy lunch.
Okay, we're gonna get going in just a couple minutes. I just want to remind everybody, the surveys that were in your blue packets, please complete and give us some feedback before you leave today. You can just put them on the registration table. They're inside the door anytime before you leave today. If you are interested in being a council member, please, Food Security Council member, please fill out that bottom part so we have your information and know to invite you to our next meeting, which will probably be towards the end of June. And then wanted to thank a couple of specific sponsors just for the food today. First of all, our Polk County Public Schools School Nutrition Department that helped out with securing the vendors for the food and has involved some personnel here to help as well. So thank you to Polk County Public Schools. And Prime Food Brokers took care of the breakfast today. Coastal Food Brokers took care of the lunch. And then Tyson took care of the snacks. So I just want to thank all of them. Thank you. And also there's some computer chip kind of looking business cards. Those are for our tech company. Netza Rodriguez is doing a fantastic job with everything. Everything's been very, very smooth and seamless. So thank you to them as well.
Stacy Jeffcoat.
Stacy Jeff. And I'll turn it over to Jessica Napoleon and our panel.
Okay. All right, good afternoon. Thank you all for hanging out after lunch. I promise you will not be disappointed. My name is Jessica Napoleon, as Rod said, and I am a public health planner with the Florida Department of Health here in Polk County. And I will be your moderator for this afternoon's panel discussion, which will focus around the unique challenges and opportunities for collaboration among various food assistance programs that serve Polk County. Feeding assistance programs represented through today's panel include SNAP, or Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which we heard about earlier this morning, WIC, or Women, Infants, and Children, VISTI, which is Volunteers in Service to the Elderly, as well as a grouping of school-centered programs that provide food for students and their families beyond the school day and school year. School-centered programs such as these include after-school and summer meals programs, backpack programs, and school pantries. Allow me to briefly introduce our panelists. Closest to me, we have Ms. Stacy Jeffcoat, who is a client relations coordinator with the Department of Children and Families, who oversees the SNAP program, and she serves the Circuit 10 at Polk, Hardy, and Highlands counties. Next to her is Mr. Steve Bissonette. I always want to call him Steve Visti, but he is the president of Visti, and they serve Western Polk County. We also have Ms. Bernice Bax, who is the director of the WIC program for both Polk and Hardy counties. And all the way far to the far end of the table, we have Ms. Jenna Kazmarski, consultant and current co-chair of the Polk Food Security Council, and she will be representing school-centered programs. The panel discussion will be conducted in a round-robin fashion, where each panelist will respond to the same question before a new one is asked. Each panelist will provide a brief response to 3 predetermined questions that I will pose to them. With the remaining time, we will open it up to all of you, the audience, to ask any questions you may have for our panelists. And so that being said, please be sure to write down any questions or thoughts or ideas that come up for you while listening to our panelists, so that you may either ask those questions during the Q&A portion or share and discuss your thoughts and ideas during the breakout sessions that are to follow this afternoon. With all of that, panelists, are you ready? Okay, let's begin. So the first question, Stacy, I'm actually going to jump over you because we did have a presentation from Ms. Amanda Wilson this morning about SNAP. But the first question is, please provide an overview of your programs or services as they relate to addressing food insecurity within Polk County. And we'll start with Mr. Steve Bissonette. Hot mics. Go ahead. Oh, maybe not hot mic.
Hot mic.
There
It's
it
hot
is.
mic now. Okay, thank you. I must admit, I enjoyed sitting out in the audience better than up here. It feels like you're way far away, but thank you for the opportunity to be here. How many of you are already familiar with Visti?
Nice.
Okay, I think I'm done.
Well, for those of us.
Okay, for the few, Volunteers in Service to the Elderly is a local nonprofit organization that started nearly 40 years ago in the Lakeland area, primarily out of a need for seniors to get transportation assistance to medical appointments, to the grocery store, to church, and the like. And over that time, we have evolved into a number of other programs that we're able to offer as a result of increased community support and engagement. We are not a federally funded program. We are a locally supported operation that relies heavily on leveraging volunteer involvement. Specifically with food, we have now two programs that are directed to that need. And one is our supplemental groceries, which every month are around 1,200 clients that receive what equates to about a shopping cart worth of groceries. An old roommate of mine used to say sometimes there's too much month at the end of the money. And we're not trying to meet the full monthly need, but we're trying to help bridge that gap. Because all the folks that we serve are at least 70 years of age. Our eldest, God willing, later this week, will turn 107.
Wow.
And our focus is to help them to remain safely in their own home as long as possible. And obviously, transportation and food are a big part of that. The other program specific to food is our hot meal program, where we now have the ability to provide hot meals directly to our seniors' door twice a week. The food is prepared at Florida Southern College and distributed from First Presbyterian Church in Lakeland. So we do serve the western part of Lakeland, of Polk County, from Lakeland, Bartow, Mulberry, and Fort Meade.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Bernice, to talk about WIC.
So same question, how many of you are familiar with WIC? Okay, good. So I'm done too now.
Nice try.
It would be nice to be done rather than in the hot seat. So unlike Visti, WIC is a federally funded program. We started nearly 50 years ago in 1974. I won't tell you how I'm able to do that math so quickly. But it was nearly 50 years ago. And like I said, we are a federally funded program, and we qualify women, infants, and children for our program. Women who are pregnant, women who are postpartum up until 6 months postpartum, and breastfeeding women up until a year of age, till their baby turns a year of age, depending on their breastfeeding status, they can stay on the program longer. Also infants up until a year, and then children up until age 5. And part of the idea of cutting them off at age 5 is because then they go into the school system and they can get their additional foods through the schools. Clients for our program are categorically eligible based on income. So if they qualify for Medicaid, they do automatically qualify for us. Otherwise, if they're not receiving Medicaid, then they would have to prove their income to us for their household. And similar to the graph that we saw earlier, the chart that we saw earlier for SNAP, it's based on your household size and your household income. So categorically eligible based on income, based on the category of women, infants, children, that would qualify them. And then also they have to have a nutrition or a medical risk. When they see us, we go through all sorts of questionnaires, and anyone is going to qualify for a nutrition or medical risk, whether they're underweight, overweight, have diabetes, or if it's simply that we notice as we're going through the questionnaire, if they're putting their child to bed with a bottle or they're serving a food that might choke their child, that's going to qualify them. So very rarely, I've been with WIC 20 years, and I think one time I had difficulty finding a reason to qualify a person. We have nutrition experts working for us. So we have registered dietitians, we have licensed dietitians, we have nutrition educators and health educators, which sit down with the client, look at how they're feeding their child or how they themselves are eating during their pregnancy or postpartum. And we try to educate them on the proper way to feed their children, the proper way for themselves to eat. We also do a lot of breastfeeding support and breastfeeding education. We actually have a peer counselor program. These are women who have been on WIC before, or they're currently on WIC, and they have or they are currently breastfeeding, so they can connect really good with our clients and promote breastfeeding. We have certified lactation consultants, and we also have an international board certified lactation consultant who oversees our breastfeeding program. We also have breast pumps available to women who maybe are having difficulty breastfeeding, or they are maybe the baby's still in the NICU and they're trying to get that breast milk back to the baby, which we know breast milk is the healthiest way to feed a baby. So, and it's free. So all those other benefits related to food when it comes to a baby and breast milk. Besides the food that we provide, we also give us referrals to food pantries and to Medicaid and to SNAP and different community partners in the area. As far as the foods that we provide, WIC is very specific as to what foods we are allowed to give, because again, we're federally funded and there's all sorts of rules that we have to follow. But there are foods that are predetermined, which people can get based on if they're an infant, a woman, a child, a breastfeeding mom, that sort of thing, and very specific. And these foods are loaded onto an EBT card, and the client can take their EBT card to the store to shop, and they actually have a little brochure that they follow, or they can follow the app that's on their phone if they download the app, and they can scan the food item. And like I said, it's very specific. So it's going to be a certain brand of cereal, a certain size box, a certain whole grain bread, not white bread, that sort of thing. So we have that education with that, as well as we try to teach them what they're allowed to purchase. For moms who are not breastfeeding, or for moms who are breastfeeding and maybe need a supplement with formula, we have certain brands of formula that we allow. Even for toddlers who maybe need a specialized formula for a medical condition. And moms who don't breastfeed, they actually get a benefit of some extra foods. So we give them, I'm sorry, for moms who don't need formula because they're fully breastfeeding, we give them extra foods. And their infants at 6 months get extra foods compared to babies who are getting formula. And the thing with us is we're not, like a drop off, here's a bag of food. It's an entire program. And then the client goes to the store to purchase their benefits.
That's nice. Great. Thank you, Bernice. Now on to school-based programs.
So I'm going to do my best to give you an overview of all of the services that are now happening beyond breakfast and lunch. When I started in school nutrition program 16 years ago, other than maybe some after school snack, breakfast and lunch was it. And now there's more and more services being offered in and through the schools. And so I'm going to do my best as an independent person in that space to sort of give you an overview of what that looks like. So I'm going to start with what happens during the school year, and then I'll do summer separately. So during the school year, beyond breakfast and lunch, the school nutrition program, which is federally funded through USDA, has after school snack programs. And they have recently expanded that to the after school meals program, which is run through Department of Health. And so over time, they'll be taking those after school snack programs and converting them into after school meals. It doesn't look much different to the child, but they get more nutrition because it's a full meal. And so we know that will help them with our food insecure students, because they can get more than just a snack before they head home. They can get that full meal. So they're in the process of expanding the after school meals by converting the snack programs into meals, as well as, which you'll hear about with the third question, collaborating out into the community. The eligibility for those programs are usually based on the demographics within the school. So not individual student eligibility. Pretty much when you look at trying to make a school eligible, it was easy to do. because there was always a school nearby that had the demographics that made that possible so that those meals could be provided at no cost. And we also have now school pantries. And we have two major supporters of that right now. So Freedom Tour has supported mobile pantries. They're currently supporting 6 schools. And so they're on a rotating basis. Big shout out to Steve Warner in the back of the room. We were just talking about the fact that it's probably not sustainable that he's literally in the truck offloading some of that food. And so again, we'll be talking about partnerships later. And so that expanded sort of post-pandemic when we saw what you could do in a mobile food situation. And so those are mobile food pantries, meaning the families, when they're driving through, maybe picking up kids or however they can come to the school and they can get the food directly from the school. And then Feeding Tampa Bay, as they mentioned earlier, is also doing on-site food pantries in school locations and also looking to expand that as well. I also wanted to point out that Freedom Tour supports our charter schools in Lake Wales. So sometimes those of us that work in the public school system, we forget to include what's happening in our largest charter system in Lake Wales. And so Freedom Tour, given that they're in Lake Wales, supports them as well. And then Amy Royal with Kids Pack is in the room today. And so they offer backpack programs, and that gets our kids through the weekend. And so they, I think she said, are servicing during the school year about 80 schools. And basically they identify their students through the Hearth program, which is our homeless children and families. And so the children get that backpack to send them with food home for the weekend. And then during the summer, all of those players are really active as well, because of course we know that as soon as the school doors close, breakfast and lunch that those kids could rely on is no longer available. And there's a huge gap. And even the services that are provided, we know do not meet that gap. So lots of room when we talk about partnerships. So the summer meal program is another USDA program that the school nutrition program operates. They can operate that program at schools, at summer camps, at other community locations, as well as mobile situations again. So for example, we oftentimes will go to the migrant communities and where they're living, and we'll do a mobile food, and where we actually just drive the food there, put up a situation where they can eat, and then they don't have to, because they don't have a way to get to the school or the camp. That's available to kids 18 and under, and again, free of charge, and that sort of eligibility is based on school demographics for that program. The Boys and Girls Club, I do want to know, also operates summer feeding programs through USDA, and there may be some other partners in the county, and so it does not have to be school-based. Community partners can be a USDA sponsor for summer meals. And in the summer, Kids Pack is also operating, and she mentioned to me that they have 7 locations this summer running June 6th through July 21st. And again, it's the weekend program, again, with the concept of if the kids might be going to summer camp or coming to school and getting summer meals, they need that support through the weekend. And so Kids Pack is continuing to support their students on the weekends during the summer.
Excellent. Thank you, Jenna. All right. So now that we have an overview of all of the different programs up on or represented by our panel today, I'm going to go into our next question, and we will start with Stacy with DCF. What is one unique or common challenge that your program or your clients face when it comes to food security? Let's see if I can
Hello.
Esty.
So some of the unique challenges that our clients in our program face, client engagement right now is probably one of the biggest ones, and that can look like several different things. You know, one of our biggest hurdles right now after or during the COVID pandemic has been engaging with our clients, because our agency has been so overwhelmed with the amount of new applicants as well as the redetermination of our current applicants. So, you know, it's hard for them, as Amanda mentioned earlier, our number one denial is failure to complete an interview. So we're fortunate that we have a great community partner network that we can depend on for our clients to go in and help engage Apparently I'm too quiet. So that's been a challenge. And also when we talk about engaging our clients, a lot of our population is homeless, so they don't have a physical address and they don't, luckily the SNAP program has the phone assistance option there where you can, with Assurance Wireless, you can get a free phone, which is awesome. But sometimes, that's dependent on minutes and the minutes run out, so they can't complete their phone interview. Also, when we talk about the other high denial rate, which is not sending in their verifications, they don't have a lot of access to fax machines and internet and things of that nature. So it makes it hard for them to get the information to us. And not a lot of people remember snail mail, but that is another option that they can, avenue that they can take is to actually put a stamp on it and mail their verifications in. But we, in our agency, also with determining eligibility, some of the hurdles are the fact that you have to cooperate with child support enforcement. Our able-bodied persons without dependents need to make sure that they work register and that they're engaging in career source with services to, to find work, because ultimately the goal is self-sufficiency. So, and then, just other things, factors of citizenship and so on that may come into play.
Well, that's one way to know your time is up. Sorry about that. Thank you so much, Stacy.
You're welcome.
Steve?
This is not unique to Visti, but I feel like it's probably unique to every one of us here. So I'll just put it on the record, transportation. I don't think that's unique to us at all, but I would guess every one of us would probably put that up as one of the top challenges. It certainly is for seniors. When you have someone 90, 100 years old, you don't really want them to be driving to the nearest, location. But particular to seniors, ease of food prep is also something that we are challenged with. A lot of times we actually have to turn down fresh produce because we can't get it out quickly enough to our clients. They don't necessarily all come to us. We often have to bring it to their homes. And you can only have so many watermelons this size for a person who's 100 years old that has to eat that in a few days. And, it's kind of funny, but it's true. It's hard to get the fresh produce into someone's hand quickly and to do it in a way that especially an elderly person is able to consume in a timely fashion. So as a result, we tend to lean a little more towards frozen, which most can handle, and they're able to hold on to it. Even if their portions are smaller, they can still, extend the life of that food. So the caveat on that is that every once in a while, and I've seen this myself, we'll have a client will open up their freezer and it is full. And so it's almost like real versus perceived food insecurity, because with those who have lived through the Great Depression or are children of the Great Depression, that full freezer, anything less than that is food insecurity. So that's one of the issues that, it's hard to quantify that, but it is something that I think we need to be sensitive of in terms of meeting the need. Are we meeting the perceived need, or are we really helping to meet the real need underlying that? Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. Bernice?
So for WIC, I would agree, transportation is also a concern that our clients have that sometimes interfere with them being able to come in for our services. We do have some who walk to our appointments. We have some who pay someone else for gas money to get them there. And with gas prices as they are, that doesn't help. Normally with WIC, pre-COVID, clients had to physically come into our clinics for their appointments. Currently, and it keeps getting extended, I don't know if, how long it will continue to get extended, but we have physical presence waivers to where clients don't have to come into the clinic and they can do a lot over the phone. They can email their information to us. They can do it through the app on the phone and send us the information that they need. So Normally, though, if we think back to pre-COVID, they have to physically come in. So they also have to bring anyone that they're applying for. So if that means one child, if that means 3 children, if that means, a pregnant or a mom who's just delivered a baby 2 days ago and she's coming in with a newborn and her 3 other kids. So they all have to come into the clinic. Some of our clients have to miss work to come to their appointments, and the appointments might take a couple of hours because there is so much that we have to do during that appointment time. And for some clients, they miss work, they miss money, and therefore, they don't get paid for those hours. So of course that impacts their ability to buy food because they've just missed out on a couple of hours of pay. And like I said, some of the appointments might take a couple of hours. Some appointments might be quicker. It just kind of depends on what the need is of their appointment for that day. But if they don't come to their appointment, of course, we can't proceed with providing services to them. Anytime someone doesn't have the information that they need, we would still qualify them as long as, as long as we can qualify them, we'll qualify them for 30 days, and they can always bring the information back to us in 30 days. The other thing is with our program, besides physically having to come to us for their appointment, they physically have to go to the store to purchase their food items. We don't currently, and I've not heard of anything about being able to do food deliveries or that sort of thing. So that would definitely help get food to people easier if it could be delivered to their homes. Some of our clients actually do have to come into our clinics as well because we directly distribute the formula to them under certain circumstances. So infants or toddlers who are on really, really specialized formulas that you can't buy at Walmart or Publix, we order it directly from the company and they have to come in to get that from us. So sometimes that's a burden on them to be able to get what they need because it's not conveniently located at the store. But those are the main things.
Great, thank you. Jenna.
All right, so I tried to pinpoint the most unique and top challenges since there's a lot in this category. For school nutrition programs, the regulations that they have to follow being a federal program sometimes make it difficult when partnering with the community partners because it makes the program a little bit less appealing when there's lots of rules and paperwork that has to be taken care of. And so it makes the programs a little less appealing when you are trying to partner or when you're trying to just meet the need at one of your mobile sites. And yet you have to know that an auditor might show up at any moment, make sure you're following all those paperwork requirements and making sure that the children stay on site when they're eating, which is one of the other challenges with the summer program. The USDA has a requirement that similar to what Bernice was just explaining, is that the meals are free to 18 and under, but you have to eat it on site. Other than a few of the items you can take with you, but the bulk of the meal has to be eaten on site. And during COVID, they had a waiver for the on-site meal requirement. And what we saw was that you could feed so many more children when you removed that requirement that they had to be, on site to eat that meal. And so we're very sad to see that waiver has expired because now we know that this summer participation will probably be a lot less because people have to be on site to eat those meals. Staffing is always a challenge as well, and particularly right now, staffing is a huge challenge probably for everyone in the room. From Kids Pack point of view, awareness of the problem of food insecurity and homelessness and hunger amongst our children and families. No one's going around advertising that they're struggling with that. And so it's often a hidden problem. And, that lack of awareness leads to lack of people taking action to either volunteer or support the programs that exist. And she also mentioned rising cost of food and supplies, as we all know right now is really posing some challenges for the program. When it comes to the other programs that we're putting at the schools, like the school pantries, I always worry very much about putting more onto the school. Our administrators are there from sunup to sundown, and we're adding all these new programs. And so as we realize that the school is the ideal place to meet the needs for our children and their families, we need to be aware of the burden that places on those schools and be there to support them, whether that is financially or volunteering time, to come during those, mobile pantry distributions, for example, or staffing the food pantry that's in the school, because guess who's doing that right now? the teachers, the administrators, district staff, and so I think we need to, if we're going to support those types of programs, we really need to be cognizant of the burden that places on the school and be there to support them.
Thank you, Jenna. Just by a nod of a head or a hand, how many of these challenges are resonating with you all in the room? Similar challenges? Excellent. Okay. Well, going into this last and third question, and hopefully this will start conversation as we move on into our breakout sessions for this afternoon. But starting again with Stacy, our third question is, how can other organizations partner with or support your organization's efforts to address food insecurity in Polk?
I feel like other organizations can help us by just educating their clients who are shared clients of ours. Lending support could be like with internet access, their computer savviness, informing them or informing BCF of any local events that are going on or statewide, but like food drives or even rental assistance or housing, things of that nature, because if we can help offset one expense, then maybe that will help them with their food budget. In the meantime, they can apply for food assistance, but while they're waiting on that, that could help supplement a little bit of their insecurities that they're having.
Excellent. Thank you. Steve?
I know when we've had some prior discussions about the need, a lot of folks had similar responses. We need freezer space, we need cooler space, we need trucks. And those are all legitimate needs. At the same time, our trucks are not used all the time. Our freezers are not always full. But it's a very difficult challenge to partner with other organizations and agencies and navigate the inherent costs and insurances and everything else that comes with that. So I don't know if there's a task force. We've got some pretty bright people even in this room that have experience with that level. Feeding Tampa Bay, I don't know, some big dogs in the room could help to develop some models for partnering, even down to those mechanics of how do you make those things more simplified for organizations that have the ability to have some of those resources, but just don't know and don't have the time and effort to deal with that challenge. It can be complicated, but I think there are some basic steps that could be crafted to give people a little bit of a blueprint and feel a little more confident to be able to do that, because we can't all ramp up so that everybody's independent in their capacity, both in the infrastructure and the rolling stock. I just don't see us getting our way out of that financially.
Thank you. Bernice?
I think the biggest thing is just to just get the word out to whoever you come in contact with about WIC. Let them know who we are. If you see someone come through your food pantry or your business and they're pregnant or they have children with them, just ask them if they've ever heard about WIC, and if they haven't, send them our way. If you have a interview process that you go through or an application that you normally use, maybe add us on there as a question. There is a misconception that they have to be on Medicaid in order to qualify for us. That's not true. If they have Medicaid, they automatically qualify for us, but they could still be, at a moderate income and still qualify. And our income guidelines are updated yearly, and they're about to be updated, I believe, in June. So each year you can make a little bit more money and still qualify for us. Let your clientele know that we do have regulations that we have to follow. So we may not be able to provide the food that they really want because there's only, certain brand names and sizes and nutrient content that we're allowed to provide, like I mentioned earlier, and certain brand names that we're allowed to provide, formulas and foods both. So, that's kind of out of our hands when they come to us, what we are allowed to put on their food package. And the other thing is just, maybe when you send them our way, let them know that our appointments do take time. And we're not just providing a package of food or loading food onto their EBT card, but we are doing, intensive looking into how they're eating and how they're feeding their family and educating them and providing breastfeeding education, providing the nutrition education. We're providing referrals. We're looking at, are they taking care of their children's teeth? Are they up on their immunizations? What is their height, weight, and hemoglobin looking like? And, so we do a lot. And because there's a lot that we have to do, there's a lot that we have to document. So those appointments do take time, and they may need to come back the following month to bring us more information. We may have to reach out to their doctor's office to get some information. So just so that they know, we're here to help them, but they have to work with us because there is information that we're required to get from them. We do have 6 locations here in Polk County. One here in Bartow, one in Auburndale, Haines City, Lake Wells, 2 in Lakeland, and then 1 in Hardy County in Wauchula, just a short drive south of here. So we're here, and we want people, we want to feed the hungry, and but just send them our way.
Thank you, Bernice. Jenna.
Okay, so for the school nutrition programs, for the new after-school meals program that I was mentioning earlier, like I said, they have been converting the after-school snack programs into meals. And then the next step will be to actually partner with outside community partners, because there is no requirement that the after-school meals have to be at a school campus. And so if that is something that you have an after-school program that provides enrichment, so that is a requirement of the program, so a tutoring service or some type of enrichment program for children after school, and you're currently either purchasing meals or have a need for meals, that might be an opportunity for you where you could be a site. Initially, you would be required to pick the meals up from the nearest school that would be supplying them, complete training and some basic paperwork, and like I said, have an enrichment component to your after-school program, which most qualify. The definition of that is pretty broad, and most after-school programs are providing something that meets that requirement. So just keep that in mind, that that's something that they'll be looking to expand into, and that's something you could reach out if you think that you have a program that would benefit from that. And during the summer as well, a lot of people don't realize that the summer meals that are offered by the schools are not just at school locations. And so the best way to expand the reach of the program is to have our community partners. And so if you offer any kind of summer camp, again, if you're providing food to the students in your program and you're paying for that, that could be potentially a summer feeding site. So keep these dates in mind. For one, if you really would like to have meals for this summer, they might be able to make that work still. So you could certainly reach out to the school nutrition program, and they might be able to still get you in for this school year, for this summer rather. But keeping in mind for next summer, if you're planning ahead, the application usually opens around February 1st. And then they prefer to have as many applications in by March 31st as possible, so that they can plan for staffing and get those approved from the State Department. But I can tell you from my past experience, if you call after that, they do everything they can to get you meals. It might not be on the first day of summer. Maybe maybe they can get you in partway through the summer, but they'll try to work with you. But that is the preferred window. So now's the best time for next summer to start planning, February 1st to March 31st. For our other programs, partnership opportunities. So with Kids Pack, in the school year, we have the Hearth program that knows where those kids are, and they can identify those and meet that need. And in the summertime, they're not all at the same place, and it's harder to find those families. And so having partner agencies that specifically know that they are assisting the homeless families in our community would be potential partners for Kids Pack. And that's more difficult for them to find their students because they can't just partner directly with the school. And as far as the newer programs like the school pantries and the backpacks, if you're interested in volunteering or sponsorship, or for the mobile pantries, having those trucks available is one of the barriers to expansion. And so that's the opportunity for partnership on those. And I think volunteering is at the top of that list, hands and boots on the ground to get those programs sustainable.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much, panelists, for preparing those responses and within the short time frame that I have allotted you all to kind of cram all of that rich information into. I appreciate it. And hopefully that jumpstarts your brains and your wheels as we go into our breakout sessions for this afternoon. But before we get into that, we have a few minutes for any questions that the audience might have. Oh, and where are our mics? Hold on one moment, but I got you.
Just one question. If you are receiving SNAP, can you also receive WIC?
Yes.
My question would be for Jenna at the end. So talking about school centered, what if someone is part of a homeschool organization? Is there any kind of thought about reaching out to some of these groups? I mean, like the homeschool co-op that I'm part of has 200 families in it. And I know that some of them have, some really amazing challenges, and that's part of the reason why they're doing homeschool. Maybe it's a bullying issue, maybe it's a, food allergy that is super, critical. They can't be around, anything, or all kinds of things, immune deficiencies. There's all kinds of reasons people homeschool, so I want to throw that out there because sometimes people think it's just, they don't like the public school system. But is there a way to, partner with some of these organizations as well to try to get food out to some of these, homeschooled children?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. And the answer is yes, most definitely. So the after school meal program as well as the summer program could both absolutely, they would qualify. And we actually have an example of that in the Highland City area. There's a homeschool collaborative, and they have after school and homework club, they call it. And so they would be eligible for the after school meals program as well as the summer program. And again, it would just be a matter of having staff that would be available to take the training and complete the paperwork. And then depending on the program, so with after school meals, initially they have to be picked up, but with summer we deliver those meals. And so yes, absolutely, that's a great idea for partnership. And then if you know specific people that would be interested in the program, they could reach out to the school nutrition department. It'd be great.
This is from Ms. Bernice. Question in regards to what are some tips for families with infants who are facing the milk shortage? What are some tips that you can give? Because I get a lot of questions regarding that.
My number one tip is to breastfeed. If mom is, even a mom who's pregnant, if you know anyone who's pregnant, just tell them to take a look at the shelves. My baby's 18 and I haven't had to walk down that aisle in many years. And I went the other day and it was pretty scary to see the shortage. So definitely breastfeed. Moms who are breastfeeding can donate extra breast milk. It goes through a milk bank, it's processed, it's screened. The shortage is out of my hands. Hopefully it is going to, take care of itself soon. We get emails every day of a new update, but it's not just, the one company, but it's that trickle down effect. Definitely do not dilute their formula down with more water. Do not do any homemade concoctions, because those are not nutritionally sound or appropriate for an infant. But, just be patient and hopefully, things will take care of themselves soon.
And Bernice, sorry to put you on the spot again, but I heard something interesting the other day, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but for some mothers who may have not started out initially breastfeeding, they can potentially start even though they didn't start from the beginning.
Correct. Yes, okay. It is possible to get a baby to latch on and nurse a little after the fact. It's a kind of difficult sometimes, but mom's body will, if baby will latch and get on there and nurse, mom's body will do its job. to produce the milk. And, you know, another thing that I've told people recently is that if mom's using milk, nothing's going to shut down her factory. So nothing's going to be on recall. So just encourage anybody to breastfeed. The other thing that the breastfeeding will do, if moms are able to breastfeed, they're using their milk, and that's going to leave that other milk on the shelves for the, you know, for moms that maybe who can't breastfeed, or, you know, it's too far into the age of the baby. Usually, I can't remember the cutoff, but the younger the baby is, the easier it is to get them to latch back on. An older baby, you know, that's already on solids and stuff, they may not go back to mom, but, you know, but that's true, they can.
Interesting. Any other questions? Yes.
Sorry, along the same lines, if you mentioned being able to get breast milk from others, is there somewhere where we can guide? Because we've gotten a lot of questions too. Is there, you said that, you know, there's safe ways to get other people's breast milk.
Right.
Where, how do we find breast milk if we're not breastfeeding?
Look for a Mother's Milk Bank, and what happens is moms who are nursing, a lot of times they will donate their milk to this breast milk bank, and they'll process it, they'll background screen it. I don't know exactly everything they do, but it's pasteurized and it's labeled and everything, and moms can get milk through them. I don't know what their regulations are. I actually heard this morning on the news that they are even taking donations of formula. If someone has some unexpired formula at home, maybe a mom, you know, who doesn't need it any longer, their baby's too old for it or whatever, they were saying on the news that they'll actually take that formula and get it out to someone who can use it. So the easiest way is to go through them, because WIC doesn't, you know, take care of any of that donated breast milk or anything.
All right. Thank you so much, panelists. And we will now go into our breakout session overview. Jenna?
All right, before we go into our workshop, yes, my assistants are going to start taking around the supplies, and I want everybody else to stand up because we've been here all day, we've eaten, and we need to stand up and stretch a little bit, I think, before we get our brains working. So stretch, and then we're gonna go through a little activity. When I need it. Nope, that's all right, so while you're standing and stretching, I want you to step back away from your chair just a little bit. And there's brain science that when we can cross our hemispheres of our body, we can get our brains activated. So I'll step over here and lead you through this quick little exercise. Opposite hands, opposite knees. About 10 times. Opposite hand, opposite. Some of you, that's hard. All right. There's a lot that goes on in our brains when we cross the hemispheres from one side to the other. So that got you activated and got you up and got you moving a little bit. If you are at a table that has less than 3 people, and I was trying to kind of look out, I don't think this involves too many people, but if you're at a table of less than 3, I need you to just find a new table. So you can sit down, and if you are at a table of less than 3, if you would just find a new home for me. Thank you. Okay, while you're moving and while they are handing out the large pads of paper, I need each table to just identify one person that's going to help me make sure everybody gets the right supplies. So quickly identify who that person will be. All you have to do is hand out sticky notes. And I'll wait to explain what you need until everybody has. Yeah, we probably won't need these. So you'll have to make space on your table for your nice big pad of paper. Okay, does everybody have paper at their table? John Michael, are we good? Okay. So the person that is agreed to be my assistant right now is going to find on their table, I forgot to bring my examples. You're gonna find on your table, Sharpie, give everybody a Sharpie. And then find your stack of sticky notes. And then there should be hidden underneath of them little dots. We have yellow dots, we have green dots. Little stickers. So the person that's gonna hand everything out, get all that gathered together, and I'll tell you what everybody needs. Everybody needs a Sharpie. Give everybody one little 3-pack. There's little, we've just divided them up into 3. So everybody needs a green one and everyone needs a yellow one for the stickers. I was trying to find Rod because he had my example somewhere. Aha. All right, and then for the sticky notes, you're just gonna divvy each color up. So everybody needs a few of each color, like 10-ish. So you don't have to be precise about that, but just peel off about 10 of each color for each person at the table. And you can keep the yellow. All right. To get us started, since some of you had to move tables and you may or may not know everybody at your table, we're going to do a super fast icebreaker. It's very simple. I want you to just say what your first name is so everybody at the table knows who they're sitting with. And I want you to say what your first job was and what you learned from that job. Do not go into great lengthy stories, people. We only have about an hour and a half. Just think of something really quick, that first job you have and something you learned, and I'll go first. My name is Jenna. My first job, I lived in Illinois in the country, and my first job was at a peach orchard. And I had to get up in the peach trees and knock down some of the fruit because if there was too much fruit on the tree, they couldn't produce what they needed. And so it was a hot, sweaty, dirty job, but it taught me a lot about hard work. And it actually taught me that I really enjoy nature and I enjoy working outside. So right now, if I don't get to do that for my job, I like to garden and be out in nature. So that's what I learned from my first job. So I'm going to give you, there's about 5 at each table. So don't take any longer than I just did and go around your table, name, first job, and what you learned from that job. If you finished at your table, raise your hand. Okay, good. I didn't want to rush anybody by any means, but certainly want to keep us moving. So here we go. So what you have on your table is my rudimentary drawing of a sailboat. And the sailboat obviously has a sail and it has an anchor and it's in the water. So the first part of this exercise, and this is called a lightning prioritization workshop. And the reason it's called lightning is because in the course of about an hour, I'm going to be able to gather information with each and every one of you. When you have a short time frame and you have a large group, the last thing we want is for the person who doesn't feel comfortable sharing to keep their ideas inside and we never hear them. And more importantly, after today, the Food Security Council will continue this work. This is not a one-time event, right? And so the goal of today was to gather as much as we can from the wonderful minds that are here in this room. And then we'll be taking that back and we'll be doing this deep dive into creating what we call in Polk Vision, a tactical plan. That is how Polk Vision does amazing things. If you're not super familiar with the work that they do, they collaborate, they align, and they use tactical plans to have these measurable outcomes with timelines and people responsible, and we get amazing things done with that sort of model. And so as a new Polk Vision team, the next thing on our plate is a tactical plan. And so this information is gonna get the ball rolling for us and help us prioritize what goes on that tactical plan and what the work actually looks like. So step one is for us to gather some positive vibes. And so I'm gonna give you about 3 minutes, and what you're gonna do is take your, I realize there's two very similar colors, don't stress about the color, the one that looks most light pink to you that you've been given, and you're gonna take your Sharpie, and you're just gonna lightning in 3 minutes, write down as many positives that you see either in your experience or that we've shared today that is getting us to this mission that you see up on the screen, where the Polk Food Security Council is dedicated to ensuring that everyone in the community has sufficient quantities of consistently available, healthy, nutritious food. And with a commitment to the principles of equity, diversity, and inclusivity, the council works to strategically align hunger relief activities aimed at achieving sustained improvement. So what do we have going for us that's going to be the wind in our sail? So you're going to place your pink stickies, and you're going to do as many as you can in 3 minutes on this top half of the page. What is the wind in our sails right now that's going to get us to start to be able to create momentum and achieve that vision? Okay, so you're going to have 3 minutes, and there's small sticky notes for a reason. We just want short, concise statements and as many as you can get out. What are the positive things that you can think about? So 3 minutes and go. Oh, I meant to show you an example. Facilitation 101, show an example. My positive is Polk Vision. I'm taking the easy ones. So the fact that we are centered around Polk Vision is a positive, and that's what I put up here. Okay, that doesn't stick very well. And resist the urge to talk. I forgot to mention the rule. We are working, we're working independently. All right, write down your last few and put those up on the board. All right, now, same mission, same concept, but as we know, for every positive, we have a lot of challenges as well that are like an anchor weighting down our boat and keeping us from getting to our destination. And so you're going to take your blue sticky notes and same concept. And so I'm going to, again, take the easy one in the room and I just put $. So money is oftentimes a barrier in this space. And so again, you're going to just think of as many challenges as you can. And you're going to put those on the bottom and go. All right, we have all of our challenges. I'm really enjoying seeing how some teams have these nice organized rows like this table, and then others are like all random. It says something. All right. So now we have our positives, and we're going to be taking these with us, okay? And so we will, any information that we don't use, like the positives today, we needed those for later. What we're going to do with these challenges, it is sometimes really easy to come up with all the challenges and then we start to get kind of negative, right? And we're like, what do we do with all of that information that we just thought about? And so a really helpful tool is to take a challenge or a barrier, whatever you want to call it, and transform it into a how might we statement. Okay. Now, we don't have time today to do how might we statements for everything you have on your board there, right? 10, 20 challenges that you came up with. So today we're going to prioritize, and that is where your little stickers are going to come in. So we'll start with the yellow stickers. Okay, so you have your 3 little yellow stickers, and each person gets to vote on 3 of the blue challenges. So look at the ones you put on the board, the ones other people put on the board, and consider what raises to your mind is the top challenges that we might want to try and solve, right? So you're going to vote for 3 of the blue challenges by putting a little round sticker on the 3 that you want to vote for. Does anybody need more time to rank their challenges? It's okay if you do. Don't want to rush. Okay. So the same person that helped me hand out the supplies earlier is going to look at the dots and you're going to find the top 2. So hopefully you can identify the 2 challenges that received the most votes and go ahead and pull those off and hold them for me. If it's close, you can decide amongst your team which 2 you want to proceed with. You just need 2. Okay, hold up your 2 for me so I can see if anybody needs more time. Just the person who's responsible. Okay. You guys, okay? You got your 2? All right. Overachievers, yes, you can do 3. We have enough time. It won't prohibit you. I prefer 2, but if you want 3, you have 3. Okay. So the person who's holding those sticky notes, you're going to help me with these how might we statements. You're going to flip your paper, doing your best to, I know it's hard on these tables for sure, but doing the best to keep those other sticky notes intact. Okay. And if you want someone else to help you write, that's fine. And I'll give you a little bit of time in case you need to talk with your team on how you want to formulate your statement. The way to create your how might we statement is to take the challenge that was listed and then transform it into a solvable, I didn't say easy, but solvable problem. So how might we, if my challenge that I picked earlier was money, how might we raise more money? So it becomes a statement that we can start to create solutions for, right? So take the 2 challenges that ranked highest or 3 and decide amongst your team what your how might we statements should be, okay? And you're gonna write that, sorry, on the yellow sticky note that's a little bit bigger. Put it on your new piece of paper. I would recommend one or the other. Resources is global.
No, funding resources, meaning funding resources.
All right. So how might we? Yeah, how might we find resources? How might we? The idea behind that is to keep it as broad enough so that people can then start saying, okay, we can go after a grant. You know, we can increase our marketing to donors who might want to donate. So you're just forming a statement that you can start to build solutions. Not yet. Oh, okay. Are you okay? Okay, we're working. Not yet.
Okay.
Right now, you're just coming up with a statement, okay? Yeah, you're not going on to anything else besides your two how might we statements and putting them on the board. So which are these? Good job. Okay, raise your hand if you have your two statements so I can just gauge if anybody needs more time. Good, good. Oh, you have three. Okay. Good. Not yet. All right, well, go ahead and move on. And if you didn't quite get your statements formalized, it's okay. You can catch up because the next round is we have more time for because it is the solution part. So everyone was like, wait, are we supposed to be answering it? I'm like, not yet, not yet. So what we have now are these how might we statements. These are going to be really helpful to us as we start to prioritize actions because again, we can't just look at challenges. We need to actually have something we can solve. And you really need like a question or a statement to know what you're trying to solve, okay? And if you had a little trouble transforming your challenge into a statement, that's okay, because that's not always a natural process. And you want to make sure like you get that right? And that's something that we can refine more over time. So now you're going to have time to really think independently, and you're going to try and come up with as many solutions to your how might we statements as possible. Okay. And you're going to list them and make sure you list them in a way that it's clear which solutions go with which question, especially those of you that chose 3, because we're going to rank these later. We're going to vote on these as well. So again, I don't need a report about how I would fix the transportation problems, as I know some of you had transportation. These are like short statements. Just be creative. Anything that pops into your head, and just put it on a concise little note. It's just like an idea. It doesn't have to be the whole thought out process. You don't even have to know how that would happen or how we would pay for it or who would do it. And you don't have to be the one to do it. But if you're like, hey, this would solve that problem, concisely put it on that sticky note and then list it underneath that statement. And then later on, we will again go through a prioritization of that. Yes, thank you. So now we're going to do the orange. Okay. And so I said, how might we raise more money? And so I wrote down grants. Again, we're not looking for details. We're just looking for as many creative ideas that we could start to formulate programs around later. Okay. All right. Thank you for the music break. I should have told you that. We should have done that the whole time. All right, guys. So hopefully what we have done in a very quick time frame is given our team some solvable problems that we can start to try and tackle. And what I love about this is that we have gotten your feedback on what you consider priorities, because sometimes it's hard when you are a group of 10 or 15 people on a committee and you're trying to meet the needs of a whole county. And it's very nice to get feedback from other people on what the priorities are as they see it. And so I want to thank you for your input today. I want to thank you for your time. We're really grateful that you're all here and willing to partner with us as we move forward. I hope most of you become Food Security Council members if you're not already. So a couple things just to close us out today is that I wanted to leave you all with something that I kept thinking about, and that is that the solutions to hunger in Polk County are local solutions. They're going to come from the individuals in this room, and they're going to come from working together in Polk County. No amount of government program, or things from the outside will ultimately solve that problem, because we've had those resources around for a long time, and the problem around hunger has been going on for a long time. And so I think this is an amazing opportunity to really form that collaborative network and work together and really start coming up with those local solutions that will really start to move the needle on this issue. I've seen it in, like I said earlier, a lot of the things that we try to tackle with Polk Vision, and when we work together, we work better and we make bigger impacts. So today's just the beginning of all of that, and so I'm just so grateful that all of you are here and you're ready to go on that journey with us. And again, as Rod mentioned, making sure that we get your contact information so that we know how you want to engage with the council. Most likely, with the large size of group that we've engaged, we'll have a large group that might meet less often, and then we'll have a core team that is willing to meet monthly. And so that is probably the two main ways to engage with the Food Security Council. And then we will continue to have the yearly summit, of course. So a couple things housekeeping wise. If you didn't check in, Ashley is in the back at the Polk Vision table, and it's important that we get your contact information and know that you were present today so we know how many people came. So please stop by her if you didn't check in on your way in. Please make sure you fill out that feedback survey so that we know what we can do better next time. This was our first one that we pulled together. I think it went really well. And we want to know what you might want to see for future summits. And I think that is it. The centerpieces, that's real food, someone asked. So you're welcome to take the fruit, maybe the green beans if you wash them real good. And there's some bags being sprinkled around to help you. So we definitely don't want to leave the vases, please. Yes, thank you. Those are United Way vases. But you can certainly take the fruit. We wouldn't have enough. We wouldn't be able to use all of that just amongst our committee. Was that it? Rod? Did I miss anything? Thank you also. Wait, and there's some snacks left in the back. So anything left in the back, snack wise and drinks, please partake of that. And then since we are ending early, you're welcome. You can certainly chat and network, since we haven't had a lot of time to do that today. So you can certainly network as we start to clean up and wrap up. Anything else?
Yeah, I just want to echo everything Jenna said. Just thank you all. It's been really incredible. A year ago, we never even imagined how we could have a food security summit. We knew the scope and how large the issue is and is continuing to be, but thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it.